Good evening, everyone. In compliance with Chapter 551, Open Meetings of the Texas Government Code, I call to order a regular voting meeting of the Board of Trustees of the Austin Independent School District for Thursday, November 16th at 6:06 p.m. A quorum of the board is physically present at the AISD Central Office to conduct this meeting. This meeting is streaming live on AISD TV and Apple TV. It's also being broadcast on cable channel 22 through Spectrum, Astound Broadband, and on channel 99 through AT&T Uverse. Closed captioning in English is available on these platforms for individuals who are deaf or hard of hearing. So welcome again, and thank you for joining us. So our first item for tonight is under the President's Report. So on behalf of the Board of Trustees, as we embrace the more temperate weather and prepare for a well-deserved fall break, we just really want to express our appreciation to our exceptional staff, dedicated teachers, and our super supportive families. It really is the combined effort of the entire community that allows us to create safe, nurturing, and enriching environments for our wonderful students. Fall break is one of our favorite times of the year because it is a perfect time for reflection and practicing gratitude for all the people and experiences that enrich our lives. So we wish you all plenty of time for rest and rejuvenation and gatherings with loved ones. So thank you for being part of our AISD family. So our next item is committee reports, and we have posted the written committee reports as an attachment to this item on the board docs agenda. This includes a committee report for the Board Policy Committee and the Austin Education Fund. So next up is the superintendent's report.
All right. Thank you, President Singh. I will ask Heather to come to the to the table. So while we get set up, want to just acknowledge that we are entering into Thanksgiving break. Take the time, take care of yourself, reflect. It's been a great start to the school year, but certainly I know many people are looking forward to a restful week. So just want to make sure everybody takes care of themselves over the course of the week. And so first, I'd like to start off with an update about Enroll Austin. It is our new platform that went live on November 8th. Enroll Austin is a new unified enrollment system that families can use to register students for the 24-25 school year. So the enhanced system allows for online registration, online student transfer requests, the common application, and the pre-K application. Our Enroll Austin system enhances the registration experience for families by saving time. It can be a challenge. I know I often am not the first to be registering my students. It can be cumbersome. Understanding different school options, which will help families feel more supported. The system will make registration and enrollment more accessible, equitable, and transparent. Enroll Austin is available in English, Spanish, Arabic, Chinese, Myanmar, Pashto, Persian, and Vietnamese. Families can apply for up to 7 programs and to rank order their preference. The timeline of events that will support this effort started on November 8th with priority registration. Priority registration application will be open until February 6th. On March 5th, priority registration results will be communicated with families. By March 26th, families included in priority registration will need to complete their annual forms. And then on April 6th, the general registration application opens. It's never too early to register for next year, whether you are returning to your current campus or applying for a different school or program. Find your seat, Enroll Austin now. So as we move on, were you able to get that up? Okay, all right. So continuing on, it's been 1 year since Austin voters approved the 2022 bond program. Over the past year, we have started building the foundation for all the projects included. We have held 103 campus architectural meetings at 21 different campuses. Like, that's a big lift, y'all. That is huge. And I think, one of the things that we're very proud of here at Austin ISD is that each of these investments is done with community, right? We go through the design process with community, and the CAT meetings allow us to do that. We've started 23 safety and security projects. We have 20 schools in the design process now, and we've held 20 community meetings around swing space solutions. So thank you to the Austin community for your ongoing dedication and support. You contribute so much to our students, teachers, and our Austin ISD learning communities. If you want to learn more about the 2022 bond program, please visit www.aisdfuture.com. And again, that's for the 2022 bond program. November is Native American Heritage Month, an opportunity to recognize and celebrate the cultures, traditions, and achievements and contributions of our nation's indigenous people. Join Austin ISD as we learn about Native cultures in Texas and highlight indigenous voices. We kicked off this month's events on November 1st with an outdoor ceremony right here at Central Office. We listened to a story from a colleague of ours about her tribe and descendants from Oklahoma. Thank you, AISD, for always being inclusive and honoring all cultures. Our own Austin ISD Police Department held their 4th annual Trunk or Treat at Nelson Field last month. We hosted nearly 3,000 guests at the event and had over 30,000 pieces of candy, along with resources and information for families. We want to thank everyone who donated candy and to our Austin ISD Police for hosting the event. You can see right there in the picture, it's just an incredible event. Just so grateful for our community showing up, and what a safe way to go through the trick-or-treat process. So as we move on, our educators have done it again. For the 5th year in a row, Austin has been named a District of Distinction by the Texas Art Education Association. TAEA recognizes school districts that are leading the way in the visual arts through the District of Distinction program. The program honors districts and learning institutions that exhibit outstanding leadership in promoting the arts in their district and community. Austin ISD has earned this award for 5 consecutive years and will be celebrated at the 2023 Fall Conference in Allen, Texas, tomorrow, November 17th. Yeah, that's a big deal. That's a big deal. So raise your hand if you had a blast at the Inspire the Future luncheon. Like, that was awesome. It was absolutely fun. I had a blast. It was an incredible event. It was our best Inspire the Future luncheon yet. It was a wonderful event with so many of our friends and family from our local Austin community. The student performances were just absolutely incredible. I want to take this opportunity to thank Michelle Wallace and her amazing team in the Office of Innovation and Development for all of the hard work they put into making Inspire the Future a huge, huge success. And to all those businesses and community members who gave a donation, thank you. We'll be able to do more for our students because of your generosity. Our teachers will put this money to great use in their classrooms. On Tuesday night, I was fortunate enough to spend time with our amazing team at the 63rd Annual Preservation Merit Awards, where Austin ISD received an award for our work honoring the legacy of the original Elsie Anderson community and campus, which was closed in 1971 and is now the site of Eastside Early College High School. It was a great event, and we were so honored to be recognized. You may not know this at the time, or you may not know this about me, but I spent a lot of time on the track, and so this project, which I participated and worked on, 5 or 6 years ago, is just so important to me, and was just so proud to be there with the community supporting this incredible project. So just so happy to be a part of this. So now let's give it up for Crockett and LBJ football teams. Little round of applause there. Let's go. They have both had incredible seasons, and now they are in the 2nd round of playoffs. Tomorrow night, the Crockett Cougars play Monterey Lake Creek at Giddings. At the same time, our LBJ Jaguars are playing Huntsville at Waco. Please join me in congratulating these teams on extraordinary seasons and help me celebrate their pending victories tomorrow. Yeah, so it's going to be awesome. I'll be following along. Just super excited. And congratulations to Bowie and McCallum High School newspaper staff. The National Scholastic Press Association has named 19 newspapers and 5 specialty magazines as prestigious Pacemaker winners, and we have 2 of them right here in Austin ISD. Bowie High School and McCallum Fine Arts newspaper staff were the only two schools in the country from the same school district to receive the National Scholastic Press Association Award. This award honors the best of the best. So I think that's a round of applause. That's pretty incredible to have 2 in the same district. And so, trustee, this concludes my presentation today, and always remember, strong schools, stronger Austin. And I'm more than happy to answer any questions.
Trustees, any questions? Trustee
I have a question. Superintendent Segura, I'm very grateful that we're recognizing and celebrating the Native American heritage this month, and just want to recognize that is a kind of hidden population in AISD, and I support any efforts we have to make continued efforts to identify and recognize and make visible that very important community here. And I also want to note and ask whether, I know in the past the Austin Powwow was an important partnership that AISD was part of. It doesn't appear that we are currently a partner in that work, but I'm wondering if we can communicate to our families that opportunity for the powwow is this Saturday at the Travis Expo Center, and that it's a wonderful event to take families to and to learn more and to experience some of what our community has to offer.
Okay, I appreciate that. Yeah, I can work with the communications team and see what we can do to ensure the increase awareness around the opportunity. I remember going to that many times as a kid, and actually as an adult.
Any other trustees? Yes.
So thank you for the recognition. My apologies for being late, but I did want to at least call out. My mom grew up in Mexico, just north of Mexico City, and she came from a tribe called the Otomi. If anybody already hears of them or knows of them, a lot of times folks know about the Otomi fabric, like, you know, right? That part of my cultural identity was definitely not something that was encouraged in our household. And so I do want to echo both from a systemic standpoint, but also just from a human standpoint, like for any folks who might be watching and wondering, you know, can I reclaim that? Can I claim that? When I grew up, I thought, well, I don't have a piece of paper, right? Like a paper doesn't tell me that I get to say that I'm Native American, so then I must not be. And when I saw my cousins who still live in Mexico, when I saw them reclaiming that part of our heritage and culture, I was like, hey, I want to do that too. So I'm proud to be both Mexican American and have Otomi as part of my heritage.
That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. Anyone else? Great. Thank you. All right, so our next item is an update on our intruder detection audits. Mr. Segura?
Thank you, President Singh. Tonight we have Dr. Jacob Reach, Chief Officer, Governmental Relations and Board Services, and to share an update.
Thank you, Interim Superintendent Segura, Board of Trustees. So I want to provide tonight an update on our intruder audits. In response to a June 2020 directive from Governor Greg Abbott, the Texas School Safety Center at Texas State University facilitated intruder detection audits, or IDAs, to detect vulnerable access points and identify possible areas of improvement in security procedures in school campuses across Texas. The goal for that year was to inspect all school districts in the state and 75% of campuses across the state by the end of the school year. In June, the state did release their final report, and it indicated that they did do at least one audit at every school district across the state, and they audited 7,200 individual campuses, which came out to about 83.5% of all campuses. In Austin ISD, we had a little over 85% of all of our campuses audited. The audit includes 4 parts: an intruder detection audit, an exterior door audit, a classroom door audit, and a classroom door audit if district policy requires classroom doors to stay locked, and a review of weekly audit logs that every campus conducts and keeps a copy on their campus. A change for this year is that any indication of a classroom door audit finding no longer requires corrective action. So notice is provided to the superintendent, but since it is a local decision on whether classroom doors should remain locked or not, TEA has decided that that should be dealt with locally to determine what's the best way to deal with that. But the other 3 parts, if there's a finding, that would require corrective actions. This year, the state transferred the responsibility of the program from the Texas School Safety Center to the Texas Education Agency. The agency has created a dashboard and an online submission system that allows us to review all the results that we currently have. It also allows us to review pictures that the auditors take when they have a finding. And then we can also submit our corrective actions, interact with TEA with questions or request changes to those forms through the online dashboard. So far this year, we have had 14 completed door audits. 8 campuses got 100%. Everything was great. 6 campuses had 1 or more finding. And to the best of my knowledge, all 6 of those, what I'll say is I know as of 2 days ago, 5 of those were 100% complete. I believe all 6 are 100% complete now in fixing whatever those findings are. So that ends our report to let our trustees know. Individual copies of each of these reports are in your backup under the executive session. And if there are questions that have to do with the safety security of any of these audit findings, we'd be more than happy to provide you more information under executive session as allowable under the Texas Education Code. Thank you.
All right.
Real fast question.
Yes.
Could you provide written information from the TEA about the shift in the policy around the locked doors? If you could just.
About the not being a finding that we have
Yes.
to report back on?
If you just point me to some written documents later.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other trustees have questions? All right, thank you. So next, our next item is the Mendez and Third Future 1882 update. So Mr. Segura, can you please introduce this next item?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. I would like to welcome Zach Craddock, Chief Executive Officer from Third Future, to join us. The video presentation is on the agenda item as an attachment. This will be in place of a formal presentation during tonight's meeting, but Mr. Craddock and team are here to answer any question the board may have on this item. And so as they get settled in, we'll turn it over.
There you go. Good? Okay.
President Singh, trustees, Superintendent Segura, thank you for having us again. It's good to be back. I traded off with Dr. Thurston last time. I was in Beaumont. Tonight he has Beaumont. So it's good to be back. With me, I have Jeremiah Willis, principal at Mendez Middle School. Everybody has the video PowerPoint. We are happy to take any and all questions that you have. It's been a great day today at Mendez with them. Saw a lot of good instruction, and students started off this year very, very strong. Probably the strongest of any school in the network based on the internal data we have. So we're happy to take questions.
All right, trustees. So are you guys okay if we start on this side and go down? So trustees, if you have any questions or comments, please.
I'll defer for now.
Okay.
I'll defer on questions, but I do just want to make sure the public knows where to find the video beyond just on the, just so they know
Yeah.
how to find it. Thank you.
So the video can be found on Board Docs. So if you just Google Austin ISD Board Docs, and you'll find a way to get to our today's meeting. And this is agenda item 4.3. So if you click on that, you'll come to a page that has a link to the actual presentation. Thank you. All right. I don't have any questions. Trustee Boswell?
And yes, thank you for being here. I have a couple of things I'd love to talk about. Looks like enrollment is a little bit up from the beginning of the year from your presentation and when you came to us. Can you let me know a little bit more about that?
Sure, I'll just speak briefly, and then Mr. Willis has the details. But yes, enrollment has climbed since the beginning of the year, and actually enrollment is up even more since you received the slide 2 weeks ago. We actually talked about that today because class sizes are looking the most full they've ever been. Mr. Willis, do you want to add some more insight?
Yes, it has increased for sure, and it's steadily increasing week by week. I think over the last maybe 2 weeks, we've added 10 to 15 kids. Most of them are in 7th grade. Our 7th grade classes are much bigger than our 8th grade.
Okay, thank you for that. And I know from the presentation you talked about attendance and that's been an ongoing challenge. I know you shared a little bit about the strategies you're using. I'd love to learn a little bit more about what you think the factors are that are contributing to that and whether students are responding to what you're doing to try to bring them in.
Well, we just recently rolled out. Of course, we're always trying to figure out new ways, different motivations to get the guys there. Of course, we recognize that attendance is not where we want it to be, so we're constantly brainstorming as a team as far as what can we do. Over the last 2 weeks, we've just embedded more incentives around being at school, so we have a perfect attendance incentive for the week where they get to have free dress course, we're really firm on uniforms, so free dress is a really big thing. I want to say we had, maybe half, maybe a little bit less than half, that met perfect attendance last week, so they were all there on school this Monday. And of course, they had their Crocs and their hoodies and all the things, of course, that they probably want to wear on a regular basis. So I saw a lot of, I think kids were extremely excited about that. They were even asking as we move through this week, because that is a weekly thing, Mr. Willis, are we making announcements on Friday again for Monday? So I think it's getting them excited. Don't have enough data yet to support if it's helping yet, but I think kids are definitely excited about that new incentive. So
We've also pushed out, so our 7th and 8th grade, we do our travel. So 7th grade is going to Washington, D.C. this year, and 8th grade is going to Quebec, Canada. And so we've really been messaging that out with our communications team, that we got to have good attendance. There is metrics around attendance and student travel. We were walking today and did rounds, and I mentioned to him, I said, the 1 weak point is the daily attendance. That's a weak area for us at Mendez. And so we've got to work on doing that. And I will say Mr. Wilson is doing more than any other principal we have in the network to combat that. It's not where we want it. But I feel that we're going to see it go up. So we're continually working on that and messaging that across all of our students and stakeholders.
Thank you for that. And I heard the shift to Quebec. Is that since the presentation?
Yeah, that
because of the
is.
security?
And we actually made that call yesterday. So in talking with the travel agency and then State Department, because of the conflict in the Middle East, they've recommended we not take those kids over across. And so we've respected that. So we're working with, that will not be messaged out publicly until, well, with flyers and visuals, until after Thanksgiving. So we just made that call yesterday. I
Thank
don't even
you.
know if you knew that. He didn't even know that.
Thank you. And then I have a question about enrollment, back to the enrollment. Do you have a sense, I know in the past it's been to some degree kind of a churning group of students, that students have left, more have come in, that the individual students haven't always been stable. Do you have a sense of that from the beginning of the year till now? I see students have come in. Do you know how many students have left?
no, I can't speak to that too much. I do not have that number off the top of my head that's left and came. But we can definitely look at
We can pull that for you. So how about we'll look at the number of 7th graders that started the school year and have exited, and then the number of, we can easily look at the new enrollees. That's not a problem at all. We'll
That would
have
be
Janie
helpful.
pull that. Yes.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm good for now. Thank you. Oh, I do want to say I appreciate putting the academic information on the same scale. Thank you for that. That made it much easier to look at.
You're welcome.
Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you for being here. First, I want to give kudos to Dr. Thurston, who's been very good in meeting biweekly with me, and one of our leaders here. And so just to follow up where you mentioned about attendance, when we met last time, there wasn't really anyone doing home visits. Has that changed?
Yes, that has changed. I've been regularly meeting with our counselor, and we've scheduled some times. Most of the times those happen on Fridays, where we are having her double down on just reaching out to those families, and then doing home visits with another staff member to try to make contact with those different families. Yes.
Okay. Okay. So you think that's helped bring in the attendance?
Not really.
Really?
I don't think it's helped, not really. But again, we're gonna be consistent with it and give it a shot before we feel like, that's something that we need to change or not do anymore. So we're gonna continue to follow through with it in hopes that, of course, it's gonna get better.
Okay, great, great. And I'm really excited also about opening the Community Love Hub, and hope that we are able to provide the support for the families of the students and the students, so that we can help as well as a community. There's a lot of people in the community that want to help you. So thank you. How about staffing? How is that coming along? Is that retention? How's that retention right now?
I believe we may have led a few go from the last time, but the staffing has been pretty consistent. We got a really, really strong team. Yeah, the team couldn't be any stronger. Right? There's been a few minor changes, but overall, the majority of the guys have been there, been with us since August. So, team is really, really strong.
Okay, great.
Can I speak a minute to that as well, ma'am?
Sure.
Yeah, so one of the things that Third Future has done for, this is the third year, is we do an independent audit of our instruction. And so how do we do that audit? Well, we have 3 independent people that they've calibrated with us. They know instruction. They're retired superintendents, assistant superintendents. And we started that process last week. And Mendez went through their, we call it an SRT, Systems Review Team visit. And we did over 25 observations at Mendez. And I compiled all the data last night when we got in from the airport, and did Colorado this morning. We finished in Colorado yesterday. And when he says he has a strong team, he's not exaggerating. These are the best scores I've seen in the 3 years at MOI, that we've ever had. Now, as a network, we're doing well, but Mendez had the highest scores. It's 78% of the spots proficient. The metric is 70%, which is still a high metric for first semester. He was at 78%, and the average spot score on a 0 to 10 scale, with the 6 being proficient, he was at 6.7. So now we haven't done Beaumont or our schools in Louisiana, but as of right now, Mendez is performing the highest level instructionally as measured by an independent outside review team. So I would say today when I was there, everybody is working in the mission of the school. I haven't seen every single staff member is on point, is supporting all key actions. And I'm giving him a lot more kudos than I usually do, but it really felt tight today. I was really impressed with the campus.
Great, that's great to hear. Well, just going back on attendance, I just remembered one of the concerns was getting the reporting on a daily basis, because that's so important for us to have that on a daily basis, and that had been a challenge. I don't know if it was technology or what it was, but if we could really work on having that timely, that would be very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you all for being here and for the presentation ahead of time. I'm kind of curious what your thoughts might be around, so I was looking at the growth, but then also the percentage of students at or above grade level. And although, we certainly want that percentage to be higher, I was also looking at, 7th and 8th grade science compared to ELA. I'm just interested to hear, what might some of those observations be, like what's clicking with the students, or, what y'all are observing.
That's a great question, and so that's what we're always looking at too, and what can we do differently? So my gut tells me in looking at this, so if you notice, we did well in math last year. And we didn't do as well in science as we did math, but we did not do well in reading. So I think what you're going to see from science is the majority of the science questions on NWA is going to be interpreting data charts and graphs, which lends itself more to a math skill. The science questions that were more text-based, we didn't do so well in. Example today, I can't remember the social studies teacher's room we were in, but one thing that Mendez is doing exceptionally well in social studies is embedding more text. In most social studies classes, you're going to see bullet points. Kids are just getting summarized statements and bullets. What he's done to attack that reading deficit is social studies is wrapping in a lot more text, where they're reading 3, 4, 5, up to 10 sentences, and then asking the question that aligns to the TEAC. So I think that may be a reason we did stronger in math, and that science lends itself more to that.
And that's kind of what I was heading to too. It's the text and the reading. We have a good population of emerging bilinguals, and so that text can be a little bit intimidating. They have to comprehend it and then be able to apply their knowledge on what they learned about. So I think that in combination, ELA. It's tough. That's one, and we know that from last year, that ELA was one of our lower scores. So we are providing that text across the board, though, social studies, science, all those classes, so that they can build that stamina and get more comfortable and familiar with it.
One more question.
go ahead.
Yeah, one more question. So anything you'd like to highlight about the athletics program and engagement with parents and students around that?
So yes, with athletics, when we first got there, athletics was not at Mendez, and so we are, always looking for extracurriculars. When I say that the students are working from 8 to 4 o'clock, they are working their behinds off, and they're tired, and they deserve, to have that extracurricular activity in those sports or any sort of events that they want to participate in. So we did have, we had a few scrimmages in football. We had volleyball. We played some games in volleyball. And then any sport that we weren't able to collectively have a team, just due to numbers, we were able to have it as an after-school club. So basketball, we have an after-school club for basketball. We have an after-school club for soccer. So kids are still getting it, whether they get to compete against other schools in the district or just hang out at school after school. They're getting it, and I think kids are really enjoying it. So our after-school clubs this year are really, really thriving, much more than they were compared to last year.
Actually, that was my follow-up question is like, are y'all seeing it, the participation, the ability to participate, and then is it consistent, does it kind of ebb and flow, what y'all are observing there?
I think the after-school clubs have been pretty consistent for the most part. It's a lot less paperwork and lift on families to have to complete some of those things as opposed to those athletic events. So physicals and getting there and all those different parent forums. It's a little bit less of that in the after-school clubs because it's just from 4 to 5. But it's been pretty consistent. It's been pretty consistent. I think we've had 2 or 3 different teachers that's led basketball. All the kids have come. We have cooking clubs, and we're doing a Mendez podcast. It's season 1. Episode 1 dropping soon, still in the works, but I'm excited about that. I'm excited about that. So our after-school clubs, they're really taking off this year, and kids are really excited about it, and they're staying. So it's been pretty consistent.
Yeah, I saw more students today after school day ended than I've seen before.
That's really
So
great.
on my way over here, they were making nachos in the glam. We have a glam club, so there's a fashion show at the end of the year. So you're more than welcome to come to that. The movie club, you've got it. So there were more kids after school with teachers just learning something different.
That's great. So, and then one other question around attendance. I've gone from a 2-adult household to a essentially single adult household. And I tell you, during that transition period, I struggled to even get my own, I know it's not a cognitive thing, right? It's not a thing about what am I supposed to do as a parent? It's how am I going to get these 3 kids to 3 different schools, right? And so I was just curious, first, I appreciate the transparency and the frankness around, yes, home visits are being woven in, and I can tell you if somebody was knocking at my door and I'm trying to, I'd be like, who are you and why are you here? And that's that I know that y'all are trying to reach me, right? So I appreciate the frank comment around there. And I'm also equally interested in, how are those going? Is it that folks aren't answering? Is it time of day? Is it hey, yeah, I know I need to get my kid there. It's not like this is, what are y'all seeing?
Yeah, I would say the majority aren't answering, but we also have, just a flyer that we leave at the door, let them know that we made it. And of course, constantly communicating, reaching out to them, letting them know, hey, we came by, whatever, to let them know that we were there. A lot of them aren't answering. The ones that are there are kind of sharing, hey, I leave at work and I'm trusting that he's getting on getting on the city bus and getting there. I was under the impression that he was there. We're getting a lot of that too of, wow, I didn't know. So, yeah.
Thank you for that.
Thanks. Trustee Whitley, too. All right. All right. Well, I really appreciate your time, so thank you so much for this informative update.
Thank you very much. You guys have a great Thanksgiving and Christmas if we don't see you before.
Thank you. All right, so our next item is the fiscal audit. So, Mr. Segura, can you please introduce this next item?
I'd love to. I'd like to ask for Guadalupe Garcia with Whitley Penn and Eduardo Ramos, our Chief Financial Officer, to come up and join us. We have included the video presentation to the agenda item, and as a reminder, the financial audit is on tonight's consent agenda to vote on. We're available to answer any questions that the board may have.
And we actually have Eileen Comple, a senior manager with the audit firm, with us tonight.
Okay.
So trustees, we'll start with trustee Coffin this time. Any questions, comments,
No, thank you for the detailed report.
anything? Nope, I'm good.
Yeah, just also want to share appreciation for the detailed report and let our community know where to find this. This is one of the legal obligations of every school board in Texas. Very important. Our financial management is a very important foundation for success for our students. So really want to encourage people to go to Board Docs and look at this. And the video is item 4.4. And for anyone who really, really wants to know, there's a 206-page report as well. So really appreciate the information, the thoroughness, and the clarity on it. Thank you for the work.
Thank you. Okay, Udo. Trustee Whitley Chu. All right. Well, thank you. Is there anything that you guys want to share, highlight?
I just quickly want to thank my staff, who was a huge part in making sure that this audit was successful. We have some of them here tonight. Brendan Niles, Scott Moore, Michael Needham, and Katrina Montgomery. Yep, stand up.
All right.
And so the hard work occurs all year, and because of that hard work, we have these type of clean audits, and so it's all because of my staff, so I really want to show some appreciation for them.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And just for anyone who doesn't go deep, you want to just share that it was clean and good, let people know just how strong the findings were. Yeah, because I think that's worth sharing. It was really a beautiful report.
And for the point of view of the external auditors from with Lipen. And for our point of view, like as the external auditors with Lipen, and I agree that the finance team did a great job of providing all the information that we need for this audit. They're very transparent and very cooperative, and they provided the information that we need in order for us to give this a clean opinion for the district. So thank you.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right.
Good job, Ed. We're clean.
It's always a good thing. And there truly is a lot of good information in here. So I encourage folks to take a look at it. All right, so we will now move to the public testimony for the items on the consent agenda. Members of the public wishing to participate in the public testimony portion of our meeting called a dedicated AISD phone line in advance of the meeting to sign up to speak in person or to audio record their remarks. So tonight we have two people who left a recorded message, and we will play them now, so please listen carefully.
My name is Letitia Anderson. I'm calling about student achievement, item 6.1. Trustees, Superintendent Matias, I am gravely disappointed at the lack of focus on African American students in the district. If African American students, even though they are a small percentage in Austin ISD, are not reading on grade level, how can you participate in any CTE programs if you can't read well? Now you're being asked to eliminate specific goals for economically disadvantaged African American students. Why? Why take the focus off the students that need you more? Please, please, I urge you, they need your action, not your inaction. Don't bow down to TEA. I'm sorry, do not. You are failing African American students with your inaction. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Helen Miller. I am a community leader, and I'm calling for agenda item 6.1. Why are goals for economical disadvantaged Black students being removed to only focus on testing ability? How can more than half of those economically disadvantaged Black students who can't read or do math on grade level going to test and successfully pass? When will Austin AISD show Black students that educational success matters and not their testing ability? Thank you.
All right, so that concludes public testimony. Trustees, are there any questions or clarifications? We'll start with trustee. We'll start with trustee Kaufman again. Give trustee Hunter a chance.
No, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. I just would like to ask the interim superintendent a question about the modifications that we have to our scorecard and our ability to, like, how much say do we have in what can be there and what cannot be there?
So I will say that, as we go through this process with Lone Star Governance, we have the retooling process, which is taking our existing scorecard, making adjustments, and that scorecard will be the scorecard in effect from essentially January through June of 2024. And so it's largely kind of what you have, but again, many items removed. In the spring, we're going to spend a lot of time developing a new scorecard using guidance from Lone Star Governance as required by the order from TEA. I think one of the things that I will communicate to the board and communicate to the community is that though we have scorecard goals and we'll work together to develop those, but we also have growth progress measures, which the administration brings forward to track progress on each of those goals. But in addition to that, we as an administration have the opportunity to track and kind of determine how we want to progress many different initiatives and efforts. And so supporting, Black students, understanding that there are gaps has been a focus of ours. We talk about it quite a bit. We've been trying to put things in place to position us well to do this work moving forward. But I do not feel that because it's not in a scorecard, we will not be able to make significant progress. But I do understand the concerns.
I would just, two requests. One, that we communicate that out in however way. If I believe I have a community meeting coming up also, if I can get some administrational guidance on that about what exactly, just because that holds us accountable, but just because it's not there does not mean, and I know for myself, doesn't mean that it won't be looked at and it won't be checked on. So the request for that. And then around, because this is, again, only a bridging thing that we're doing until June, and then we have to build out our new scorecard. How much will, I guess my request is that we be sure that we do have, we can hear from our community about what they find more valuable. I believe we have, that's actually a recommendation from Lone Star Governors, that we go out to the community and say, what are you concerned about? And that we'll provide that opportunity for students, people who are concerned about all groups and specific groups.
And Trustee Hunter, the draft milestone schedule, which was provided in the backup for the previous meeting as information session and will be approved here, it includes kind of that commitment to go to the community and get feedback in the end of the month of February and into March. So it will occur in the spring, and that work will be largely led by the board. So that feedback will come directly to you all, and then y'all will work with the team to develop the goals. And again, the growth progress measures, we have the ability to track and to provide detail regarding multiple different student groups.
Okay, and finally, again, more comment, a point of privilege is that this is very close to my heart. I have a student in this district. I have had a student in this district. I am an educator. This is not going unseen, is not going unheard. There is action. And though in education it might look like you would want it to happen by miles, it is happening by inches. And just look closely, stick with us, it's happening.
Thank you. And I just wanted to kind of follow up on what Mr. Seguro was saying, the difference between a goal and a goal progress measure. So a couple of years ago, so this is not a question, I'm just sort of clarifying so even more, because this is a governance issue as well. So the board determines the goals, the overall goals, and the overall goal that we are being, typically, when I first came on the board, it was based on aggregate, which is all students lumped together, okay? 2 years ago, we changed the scorecard to isolate the student group that was being most impacted. And in many cases, in several of the cases, we decided to narrow it in on economically disadvantaged students. But underneath that, there were goal progress measures. And one was related, for a couple of the goals, we focused on economically disadvantaged African American students and then economically disadvantaged Hispanic students, because that intersectionality was important to look at, because that was the subgroup that was really even more underserved. And so we wanted to make sure we track that carefully. That has not changed. The administration can still have the exact same goal progress measures. And so I just want to make that super clear. Even though the overall goals may have changed to make our scorecard Lone Star governance compliant, the goal progress measures, the very specific data around economically disadvantaged Black students and economically disadvantaged Hispanic students, those goal progress measures can be preserved. We haven't, you guys haven't brought that to us yet, but I am hoping that that is part of that, because that is very critical to making any changes, as the callers had mentioned, and I think that priority is shared with the board, so thank you. All right, any other trustees have questions? Any other trustees have questions or comments on this side? Okay, and Trustee Gonzalez, Trustee Kaufman, okay. Thank you. So just as a reminder, please feel free to share any general comments or questions on non-voting items with the board by email at trustees@austinisd.org. So our next item is part of our commitment to discuss student achievement. And we have a presentation on the scorecard items 4.1 through 4.4, which is 6th through 8th grade fall map reading and math. So Mr. Segura.
Thank you, President Singh. I'd like to welcome Ms. Patty Rodriguez, Deputy Superintendent of Teaching, Leading, and Learning, Dr. Angel Wilson, Assistant Superintendent of Secondary Leadership, School Leadership, Dr. Susan Diaz, Assistant Superintendent of Secondary Academics, and Mr. Dylan Feenan, Director, Campus and District Accountability. I said Feenan, I believe, the right way. I practiced. To share tonight's scorecard presentation. And so, team, whenever you're ready.
Okay.
Feel free to kick it
Thank
off.
you. Good evening, President Singh, Superintendent Segura, members of the board, and community members. I'm here with our leaders representing Teaching, Learning, and Leading, along with Campus District Accountability. So this evening, we have Mr. Dylan Finan, we have Dr. Diaz, and Dr. Wilson, and they will be presenting our baseline data for our fall MAP growth assessment. And tonight we're focusing on the goal progress measures for grades 6th through 8th in reading and in math. Our baseline data sets the stage for the goals and the progress that we need to make throughout the school year. So we're going to take a deeper look now, and we're going to start with Dr. Diaz.
Good evening. On this slide, you will see Goal 4, which is the focus for tonight's presentation. It is about the percentage of 6th through 8th grade students experiencing poverty. Achieving meets grade level on the STAR reading and math assessments will increase from 30% in school year 2018-2019 to 60% in school year 2025-2026. To the right of the goal, you will see our preliminary results for last year's goal. We are still awaiting final results from TEA, but where we sit now, we are 3 percentage points shy of our goal. For the school year 23-24, our goal is 36%. On this slide, you will see our fall baseline data for reading and math performance. Though we use STAR to measure our goals, we use NWEA MAP to monitor our progress toward our goals. The goal progress measures for Goal 4 are based on MAP performance at the MEETS level and are focused on our African American and Hispanic students experiencing poverty. I have to put on my glasses for y'all. So for our goal progress measure 4.1, this is 6th through 8th grade reading, our African American students experiencing poverty. Our baseline data for the fall of 2023 is 22%. For GPM 4.2, 6th through 8th grade reading, Hispanic students experiencing poverty, we're also at 22%. For GPM 4.3, 6th through 8th grade math, African American students experiencing poverty, we are at 11% as a baseline. And for GPM 4.4, 6th through 8th grade math, Hispanic students experiencing poverty, we are at a 16%. Hold on. Since this is the beginning of the year assessment, there are two items to keep in mind that, again, this data is baseline, a starting point for the year. And two, we are still in the process of collecting income verification forms. There may be some fluctuations in the numbers as we finalize this process. This is a starting point for us. In a few slides, we will share some data with you that will demonstrate that we are starting out stronger this year than we had in the past.
Good evening. So now that we know where we stand in terms of these goal progress measures, we're going to compare some of these GPM values to the 6th through 8th grade population as a whole, and then we'll also compare these students experiencing poverty to their peers that are not experiencing poverty. This slide I'm showing you here is looking at reading, and it's looking at GPM 4.1 and 4.2. 4.1 aligns with African American performance, and 4.2 aligns with Hispanic performance. So if we start on the bar charts on the bottom right, you see that dotted green line. That is the goal that we want to meet. So ideally, we want all of those green bars to be up at that dotted line by the end of the year. That's the goal we're shooting for. And the green bars represent our beginning of the year values where we're starting out. If we look at the African American group experiencing poverty first, what we see is we have 22% of those students projected to be at meets grade level or higher when they take STAR at the end of the year. If we compare that to the pie chart up above, the 6th through 8th grade population as a whole, there's 48.7% of them that are projected to be at meets grade level or higher by the end of the year. So the difference there is about 26%. Percentage points. When we compare them to their peers who are not experiencing poverty, they're shy of those peers by about 24 percentage points. When we look at that same analysis in terms of Hispanic students, we once again have 22% of Hispanic students experiencing poverty projected to be at meets grade level or higher when they take STAR at the end of the year. They're about 26 percentage points below the 6th through 8th grade population as a whole. And they're about 38 percentage points below their peers who are not experiencing poverty. We're going to look at this analysis again in terms of mathematics, and that's what this next slide is doing. We'll start once again with African American students experiencing poverty. We have 11% of them projected to be at meets grade level and above when they take STAR at the end of the year. When you compare that to the 6th through 8th grade population as a whole, they're 30 percentage points below the population as a whole. And when we compare them to their peers not experiencing poverty, they're 22 percentage points below their peers who are not experiencing poverty. When we do that same analysis for Hispanic students experiencing poverty, we have 16% of them projected to be at meets grade level or above when they take STAR at the end of the year. That's 25 percentage points below the 6th through 8th grade population as a whole. And that's 27 percentage points below their peers who are not experiencing poverty. I think one important thing to point out when we look here is that the only group that is not experiencing poverty that currently isn't meeting these GPM targets is the African American students not experiencing poverty. They're at 33%, so they're just shy of that 35% target. Now that we've talked about these numbers in terms of percentages, it's good to think about what do these percentages mean in terms of number of students. So the next slide, we're going to look at that for a moment. If you remember, we looked at a similar slide last week. This is the same thing. In terms of 6th through 8th grade and middle school, we don't administer the test in Spanish language because they don't take STAR in Spanish language. That's not an opportunity, so you won't see those numbers here. I'll walk you through the numbers for reading for African American students experiencing poverty and Hispanic students experiencing poverty, and then I'll give you a moment to look at the math results on your own. So we had 584 African American students experiencing poverty that were tested. 22% of them are projected to be at meets grade level or higher when they take the test at the end of the year in reading. That correlates to 128 students that are projected to be at meets grade level or higher. That means we are 106 students short of meeting our 40% target. When we look at Hispanic students in reading, we tested 4,288 students. Once again, there's 22% of them that are projected to be at meets grade level or higher, and that correlates to 948 students. That means we are 815 students shy of meeting our goal, which is 41%. When we're looking at the Hispanic group experiencing poverty. Given that, I'll give you a moment to look at the math numbers and just remind you of the targets. For African Americans, it's 35% we're looking for, and for Hispanics, it's 37%. So I'll give you a chance to look at that, and then we'll move on. Okay, thank you.
Though we are not where we need to be, we are starting out stronger, in a stronger place this year than last year. So what you're looking at is a similar slide to what was shown to you last week. One of the things that we wanted to ensure this year was that we were getting valid and reliable data. And so that took a whole group effort. So it's academics, putting out the communication. It is Angel working with her EDs to work with the campus to ensure that we are testing as many kids as we possibly can. Ideally, that's 100%. But if you look at where we started out last year in regards to reading, our baseline data in fall of 22 for our African American students experiencing poverty, we were at a 16%. This year, we're at a 22%. So this is middle school, so it's not a totally different cohort of kids. 2/3 of the kids are the same. There are some kids that are different, but it is a significant jump from where we were at the beginning of the year last year. When we look at our Hispanic students, you'll see that there is a 2% increase in regards to reading. When we look at math with our African American students, we went from 9% to 11%. And with our Hispanic students, we went from a 13% to a 16%. So again, the goal was 100% participation. Last year, we were at an 88% participation rate, and this year we are at a 93% participation rate. Again, it's not the 100%, but we will set that goal again for the middle of the year and just continue to work together to ensure that we're getting valid and reliable data on all of our students. So in regards to the teaching and learning department, there's 3 areas that we focus on. It's curriculum, Tier 1 instruction, and assessment. And as we've spoken to you before in the past, the curriculum redesign was a major initiative that we pushed out this year. So we're still in the process of monitoring and training folks on the curriculum. And just to remind you that teachers were key in the rewriting of the curriculum. We also trained executive directors, principals, instructional coaches. And finally, we work with campuses during the PLCs to train on the curriculum as well. In regard to instruction, the curriculum is designed to support the 4 questions of the PLC process, and the questions focus on Tier 1 instruction, teacher clarity, scaffolding, universal design, and strategies for our emergent bilingual students. We've worked very hard to include listening, speaking, reading, and writing into every unit that we have. For example, most of our formative assessments that are built into every unit and multiple times within a unit, the performance assessment is a listening, speaking, reading, or writing assessment. Let's see, what else did I want to tell you? Okay, so while we're also supporting professional learning through the PLCs for Tier 1 instruction, we've added the just-in-time professional learning, which has been super well received. I'm going to both Angel and I will talk to you a little bit about that in a few more slides. And in regards to assessment, again, we have spent a lot of time creating authentic performance assessments within the curriculum and other sample assessment items. We are supporting campuses as they also create their own formative assessments through our School City platform. And much of this professional learning is job embedded, and it's occurring during the PLCs. So how we're monitoring this work, I want to make clear that this data collection tool that we have created as a team is really about assessing our impact and not evaluating the campuses. So this is for us to know where are we doing well as a department and where do we have work to do. So as of 2 weeks ago, when we captured this data and turned in the presentation, you'll see that one of the things that we're tracking is a simple question: are the campuses using our curriculum? I know that 74%, again, is not a number that is super exciting. We'd want to see 100. So when we see that there's 74% of the campuses utilizing the curriculum, we come back as a team and we ask ourselves, why? Why is it not 100%? What do we have to do as a team to get more of our campuses involved in using the curriculum? Because we think that it is key to student outcomes. And again, so it's not about the campuses, it's about us as a team and what changes do we need to do, what professional learning do we need to provide in order to get to that 100. But I can tell you that even at a 74%, this is a huge increase from where we were last year. So part of being a system of schools and evaluating the impact of the curriculum is the first order of business is ensuring that campuses are actually accessing and using the curriculum. So that's why it's very important for us to monitor it and then figure out how can we get to 100%. And then the other piece of data you see here is just how we're tracking Tier 1 instruction. You can see that, well, in the first one, that point of data was 129 PLCs that we have visited. And this second piece of data is 419 campuses that we have visited and worked with. And then you can see kind of the breakdown of the work that we are supporting on campuses. And most of that work is working with PLCs, but there are other things that we do when we're on campuses. So again, the tool is new, and as we use it, we learn there's some deficiencies in it because human created, me mostly. So I found out, one of the things that I found out from this data collection tool is I needed a question that said, are they using the curriculum, yes or no? Because I had a bunch of, really lofty, strange questions, and somebody said to me, this needs to be a yes or no question. So as we use it, we continue to improve it, but it has given us a lot of feedback as a team on how we need to improve as a team. So these are some pictures of our just-in-time professional learning, and we are gathering data in a couple of ways from these professional learning opportunities. And I always thank you for these opportunities because during the pandemic, we were not able to, have subs and meet with teachers in person, and everyone was tired. So trying to grab teachers after school on the weekends, it was quite challenging. So being able to get them a sub for a half day and then let them come in and experience some learning has been invaluable. So we are gathering data in surveys, but also we've gotten lots of feedback from the principals when we had our Datacom meetings last week, which were mentioned in the presentation last week as well. This was something that the principals mentioned quite frequently. So what happens in these trainings is that the teachers and the coaches are receiving a preview of upcoming units, and then they're learning about some of the hands-on and engaging strategies that are within the curriculum. So again, I've walked into some of these sessions, and you can just tell the teachers are having a really great time, and we've heard nothing but positive feedback. And as of 2 weeks ago, when we captured this data, we've had 40 sessions, and we've been able to work with 528 teachers and coaches.
All right, good evening, everyone. A lot has happened since we last met in May for MAP EOY growth data, and what I will be sharing with you this evening is the implications that it has had for teaching and learning across secondary schools. Specifically for MAP growth, middle school principals met by level in our September and October principals meetings. In September, we collaborated with Campus and District Accountability and Region 13 to be informed of next steps for state accountability and to center ourselves in the work ahead. In October, middle school principals met with school leadership, our MAP team, and academics to review data and explore best practices with MAP growth and next steps. Also in October, all middle school principals met in smaller groups with their ED team for a separate specialized data tracker training. A snippet of the interactive tool is above on the screen, courtesy of our campus and district accountability team. Principals learned how to navigate this new tool and how to use MAP growth and STAR growth data to support students with meeting their growth target. In collaboration with secondary school leadership and academics, we also met on-site with many campuses and many leadership teams to support and to extend the learning with interpreting baseline data, planning for next steps with student supports and intervention, progress monitoring, coaching and feedback for instruction, and targeted professional development in PLCs. Along with the high-impact professional learning experiences and data-informed practices that principals are now engaging in, we are also seeing evidence of that in the classrooms. Tonight, we want to highlight for you 4 secondary classrooms with our campus highlights. As you can see from the pictures, our amazing educators are doing some pretty incredible work on our campuses, and they are going above and beyond in the classroom with instructional delivery and instructional planning. The top left picture shows our girls at Sadler Means YWLA. They are engaged in hands-on learning with finding the lateral and total surface area of prisms, utilizing 3-dimensional shapes to break down the formula, moving from concrete to pictorial to abstract through the continuum of student-centered learning and a collaborative math process. Students at Burnett Middle School participated in a book tasting experience with their amazing librarian. This was actually really fun to watch in person. I saw it posted on Twitter and invited myself to the campus the next day and got to see it in person. Students interacted with different genres through a real-life restaurant-style experience, and then the best part of this was watching all of the students eagerly lined up to the counter to check out books when it was all over, which is kind of an antiquated practice that some people think, everything is done with e-Kindle, e-books and Kindles and things like that, but it was cool to watch in person the love of reading and books in their hands. At Lively, our secondary team visited this master teacher's classroom during STAR time. This was a part of our calibrated coaching walks that we've started in partnership with Talent Strategy, and they've really proven to be doing some amazing things. What excited us the most is seeing this master teacher individually conferencing with students and asking very skilled, pre-planned, thoughtful, leveled questions using sentence stems that are rigorously aligned to the TEKS. This took place during reading workshop. Scholars also had choice and voice with book selection. And then lastly, at Webb, we are always amazed at the level of detail and layered wraparound as well as instructional supports that are being provided for all students, especially our newcomers in our ELDA program. Here, students are having fun sorting words to compose sentences that tie to the main idea of the text. It is important to also note that this summer, during Leadership Institute, we met with all principals and campus leadership teams to calibrate practices and level set for identified focal areas. With a focus on strong first teach and differentiated support for all learners, campus leaders are committed to not only humanizing the data, but personalizing the instruction for all students and making it relatable for them through authentic hands-on experiences and student interest-based performance tasks, bringing back the joy of teaching and learning post-COVID. As we know, and as has been stated to everyone before, success is not final, and we have yet to meet all of our goals in these areas, but we are making steady strides and being intentional in our efforts to deliver on the promise to every child, every day in the service of students. Thank you for your time. We are now opening the floor for question and answer.
Thank you so much. Super helpful. So I think, is it time to start with me? Okay, perfect. So I do have a question. This is the typical question I ask, and I should actually say before we ask our questions, just to remind us that our goal tonight is monitoring and ensuring that a reality matches the vision presented. So when asking questions, we really should try to focus on the data presented and asking questions about who, what, why, and how. And Dr. Reach, I actually sent you something, if you don't mind sending that to trustees. It's just the little Lone Star Governance Guide, just to offer suggestions for ideas about what we can ask, although we can ask really whatever we feel like it would be important for us to monitor this data. But for me, what's top of mind is looking at the outliers, and I noticed, so as I was looking at the map growth and really focusing on a couple of student groups that we have identified as being critical to this monitoring. One is our economically disadvantaged African American students. I noticed that there were 2 campuses that really seemed to be doing better in showing growth for our African American students who are economically disadvantaged in math, and that was Bailey and Garcia. And so I wanted to ask what we know about those 2 campuses specifically. What are they doing that might be different? And how can we use that to inform other work that we're doing?
Yeah, and thank you for asking that question. What we noticed for campus trends, especially for Bailey and Garcia, is strong first teach, strong leadership teams, strong data systems, and then individualized support for students. With both of these campuses, even with the campus instructional leadership team and the intentionality with the supports that are being provided in PLC, also with the supports that are provided for teachers, specifically first-year teachers. I want to highlight some other things from these campuses. They also have a strong emphasis on continuous data analysis. So it's not like data is a one-time, we look at it, we move on, but it's embedded in the practices of what they do. Being very specific and intentional about having calibrated walks as a leadership team together, noticing trends in classrooms, and then taking that baseline data to inform next steps and best practices when we get back to the PLC. Because we are limited right now with our campus PD time, we are taking advantage and maximizing that time in PLC to have that job-embedded professional development take place there. So the key data points and the key noticings that we calibrate with as leadership teams and executive directors are really involved in that work as well. We take those back and we plan for next steps with how to implement that and leverage supports. And then also a big piece is just opening the classroom up for peer-to-peer observation and peer-to-peer feedback. We can say it a million times as a campus administration team or executive director team, because we were all the best, right? The best teachers. We can say it from our standpoint, but it's just eye-opening for another teacher to go and learn from their peer and to see it in action, somebody who's still in the practice, who's still in the classroom, who's still in the work. And so opening those classrooms up and allowing that true learning to take place naturally and authentically is one of the best ways to motivate teachers to be able to replicate those practices with the same students that are in my building, just right next door in the classroom.
Thank you. And as a follow-up to that, so are there other factors that are maybe related to staff experience? Are there other factors such as the implementation of inclusion in the classrooms? What are some, I guess those are 2 specific things that I'd be curious to know. If are these campuses doing, do they have teachers or maybe even administrators who are perhaps more experienced? And how is special education perhaps implemented a little bit differently on these campuses compared to other campuses?
So I would have to get the numbers for the teacher retention data for Bailey and Garcia. I will say with Garcia, they were able to retain a majority of their staff from last school year. And the principal of Garcia is a 4th-year principal in the middle school level, but he also has elementary principal experience. Bailey, we have a 1st-year principal who is phenomenal. He was promoted internally within the district, so not new to Austin ISD, but this is his 1st year in the principalship. I will say they have strong leadership teams that have the instructional backgrounds, and then there are systems of support that are sustainable regardless of if there's a 1st first-year teacher or a new teacher. The work that's been done in PLCs is inclusive of inclusion work. It's inclusive of the representation of the number of emergent bilingual students that are being serviced, the number of students that are identified as economically disadvantaged, as well as special education. We have spent a lot of time and intentionality this school year and in the summer months for Leadership Institute leading up to this school year in looking at those systems and working with students and teachers and staff to ensure that we have those systems in place in order for students to be successful.
Thank you. And the other sort of structural factor that I was thinking about is class size. Is that, and I'm asking these questions to kind of help inform, you know, the budget conversations that are going to be happening, really trying to ascertain, like, are there, you know, of course, like the PLCs and, you know, the actual quality of teaching and learning and the curriculum, that's all important, but I'm also kind of stepping back and thinking, like, systemically, are there other factors that might be, like, are the class sizes, are the math classes smaller, for example, at these campuses than others on average, or are there other...
I would have to get back with you with that data. I will say most definitely at Garcia, the class sizes are smaller.
Okay.
The total, yeah. Yes, most definitely at Garcia. I would have to get back to you with the numbers for Bailey.
Okay, that's helpful. And as the board continues our conversations about improving the board monitoring reports, like that to me, again, is like looking holistically. Because Garcia, and I think this is the second year I've seen this, they have more growth for economically disadvantaged African American students than any other middle school, which says a lot. And so if class size, I don't know if that is the magic bullet, but if that is the magic bullet, then like, let's bring that into, let's consider, I mean, I don't know, like, I'm just wondering, like, if what implication that has for us, for y'all, really, and your recommendations to us as in the budget conversations.
For Garcia specifically, the culture is the first thing that stands out to me. And when you walk onto that campus, you're going to feel that culture and be immersed in it the minute you step foot on the campus. With that culture comes the teachers who have been there for a sustained period of time. Students have very intimate relationships with the entire campus administration team, as well as all the teachers that are present. There's also high participation there in sports, and they pride themselves when you go and talk to the boys because they want to feed into LBJ and be on the winning championship football team. So there's high interest in sports. There's high interest in a lot of student activities outside of school and during the day. The AVID teacher and AVID classes are phenomenal, but there are a lot of connecting pieces and factors that are non-academic that are really drawing the boys into this culture, in this environment. And because of that, they want to come to school. It's a joyful place for teaching and learning, and they want to be their best.
I appreciate that. And that's really super helpful to hear. The other question I had was when I was looking at the emergent bilingual students as well, Bailey stood out there also. And so is there anything unique that is happening at Bailey or other campuses that might be serving their emergent bilingual students that produce growth?
Yes, thank you. There are specific like student interventions and supports and things that are put into place at Bailey and at other campuses that we noticed the trends for the representation, for being able to service the emergent bilinguals in a way to where we're seeing numbers and we're seeing the data move. The first point is a high quality instruction and first teach, and then the support that's provided and feedback, timely, immediate feedback that's given to teachers in a true coaching model. So not just walking into the classroom because I have a formal observation to complete, but actually being a regular face in the classroom and a participant in the instruction to offer that timely, on-the-spot feedback and follow up, so that way we see that real progress move in real time. A lot of the campuses have realigned their lesson plans and expectations, and they also have realigned their instructional model. So we are heavily utilizing the instructional playbook that Austin ISD Talent Strategy was able to produce, I want to say maybe about 1 or 2 years ago. I'm seeing that just in exponential increase in being able to use that. And then campuses are also taking the playbook and adapting it and making their own personalized school instructional playbooks and PLC playbooks and identifying certain strategies and making it small. So there's an emphasis on going deeper and not going wider with, we have to implement and be the best at 25 different things, but let's just focus on these 3 things. And the instructional focus for the week is this particular strategy. And we're gonna stay here for 3 weeks until we see it and we practice it, it becomes second nature to us before we move on to something else. So we're seeing very streamlined campus focuses on very specific things. At Sattler Means, they have what's called the Fab Five. And so they've outlined for the teachers and staff the 5 things to focus on. And this has really helped out with students identified as emergent bilingual and special education on that campus as well. So there's an emphasis on writing across the curriculum, small group instruction, hands-on activity, and then there are 2 other things that are a part of the Fab Five. But we're seeing principals and leaders taking these instructional practices, narrowing it down, giving them a focus, and then narrating that expectation because teachers and staff will naturally emulate what you're narrating and what you're celebrating.
Thank you. And that's helpful. And so when I looked at reading, I saw similar, outliers. Lamar, I just got to give them a shout out. They had 72% of their economically disadvantaged African American students showing the appropriate reading map growth, and Martin was also up there as well, and then Bailey again for emergent bilingual students. So I don't really quite know, and I think we'll get to this as a board when we talk about the board monitoring reports. And this kind of echoes somewhat what I've heard Trustee Hunter talking about as well, and others, like isolating what is truly working with our students who are struggling, and how can we as a board support the investment in those things. And so I really look forward to those continued conversations and really appreciate all the work that's going into this, so thank you.
I do want to give a shout out to Lamar. You mentioned them, and we asked them specifically what they were doing. They have what's called Scotty seminars during their advisory period, where students go to content-specific teachers to receive targeted instruction throughout the week. And then the teachers are also creating common assessments and reviewing that data in PLC to inform decision-making practices.
Thank you, love that. Secretary Boswell.
Thank you for all of this. Really appreciate the richness and the conversation and all the data. And thank you for mentioning the joy of teaching and learning. That really, I think, is at the heart of a lot of it. And I think we hear that from our community. And I know that plays into achievement and attendance and retention and so many good things. So thank you for centering it in that as we work toward helping our students learn. I have some questions. To just really clarify what we're talking about. When we talk about the percentage of students who are at meets, now those are students who are already in a position to score at meets on the STAR at the end of the year. Is that what we're talking about with those numbers?
So what that is based on a student's RIT score on MAP, they tie that to, it's a prediction. They say, based on this RIT score, we predict you're going to get this performance level on STAR. So based on that score, and they call it alignment studies, they've aligned it that RIT scores within this range are associated with approaches. The ones in this range are associated with meets grade. The ones in this range are associated with masters. Now, like we explained last time, those alignments are based on a 2017 alignment study. So that's based on old STAR. Come winter, it will be realigned to the new STAR is what we're told. We'll wait and see. I'm hopeful they'll do that, but that's what it is.
Thank you. You answered one of my other questions. Thank you for that. So to clarify, those percentages are people who are on track to get to meets or who already, if they took the test today, would reach meets, which is that
They're
measuring.
on track to get to
They're
meets.
on
They're
track.
on track. So yeah, and it's based on weeks of instruction. So based on the number of weeks of instruction they had when they took the test, they're on track to get meets. And so what we'll do is like when the MOI comes in, we'll actually just replace that because that's a better prediction than BOI. So the BOI will go away and MOI is a more accurate prediction of where they'll be based on the weeks of instruction they've had at that point.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that because those are 2 very different measures, and that is very helpful to me to know where we are. And it's the harder answer to get, but it's helpful to know that. So thank you for that. I have a question with the math scores and looking at middle schoolers who are approaching a point where they're going to be doing higher level math, well, where they'll be going into algebra, they'll be going into geometry, and really how that impacts opportunities, kind of when you feel like kids are not going to be on track to do that higher level math. Like how urgent is this middle school, and how much of it is really coming downstream, and what do we need to be thinking about as a board with resources and catching kids up?
So can you clarify your question?
Yeah, I just think when we're talking about middle schoolers who a 6th, 7th, 8th grader will soon be in those higher level math classes, and how urgent is it that they don't have the skills they need yet, and how much of that problem is fixable in middle school, and how much of it is really going to travel with them all the way up, and how much do we need to be looking downstream as well? Or upstream, whichever
well, of course,
direction it is, earlier grades.
We think that everything is urgent, but
Yeah.
focusing on what we is in our locus of control in middle school, since the kids are already there. We know that there is something lacking within the curriculum, and that would be an accelerated math intervention course, right? So I don't like to call it remediation, because what we need to do is accelerate those students. And so therefore, we will next year have a curriculum for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students. So instead of doing something like putting them in a double block, where it's just maybe a longer amount of time, that we are going to create a curriculum that will pre-teach the skills the kids need to be successful in their on-level or advanced, accelerated math courses. So basically, the idea behind the way you kind of intervene in math is different than the way you'd intervene in reading. Usually in reading, it's going to be that they're missing some foundational skills. That is also true in math, but it can also be a confidence issue. So the curriculum that I have created in the past and has been very successful, and that we will create this year, so therefore it will be in play next year. I would have liked to have had that in play this year, but for the first thing was to get the baseline curriculum created for the math classes. So now the next piece of that is going to be to create an accelerated intervention class. And within those kind of classes, what they do is they will pre-teach what they are going to learn a few days ahead of time, and also backfill some foundational skills. So it's a combination of things. It's a little bit different than how you would intervene in reading. So it's not only backfilling foundational skills, but also giving the kids the confidence and pre-teaching the things that they're about to go into a few days prior, so they feel more ready to when they go sit in their on-level classes. So that is something that we will have in play for next year.
And so it will be using that second block of math, but instead of doing more of the same, it will be doing something distinct.
Right, it'll be a different curriculum instead of just more time.
Yes.
And again, it would be an elective, right?
Yeah.
A math elective, because you just don't want to do the same thing in more time. It needs to be something different.
Yeah.
And so we know that, and that is the next piece that we're adding into the curriculum. So our students are supported with the skills that they need to be successful.
Thank you. I appreciate hearing that. And I think that's what Breakthrough does in the summer with a lot of their students. And that idea that you don't do more of the same that's not working, you do something so both of them can work. So that's exciting to hear, very exciting to hear. Thank you for that. I would love to know a little more about the teacher rewrite of the curriculum, and if you're getting feedback on that as it's being rolled out, and what you're hearing from teachers and how you're responding to that.
Right. There's two ways that we're gathering feedback. One of them is going to be surveys that we're about to send out. So we wanted to wait for an adequate amount of time to pass before we started asking people to give us feedback on the curriculum. But other ways that we gather data about the effectiveness of the curriculum is through Angel and her team. So they have listening sessions with teachers, and we're allowed to go to those and listen to teachers and hear what they're saying. So it's not just, the fact that we're sitting in the PLCs with them. There's going to be a survey that goes out soon to collect information from what they'd like to see in the curriculum, what holes we have, but also being able to interact with them face-to-face when Angels folks invite us to go visit with teachers face-to-face.
Thank you. And then are you seeing patterns in which campuses are using the curriculum?
Well, to be fair, so we see patterns in places where we are able to support. So we have a fairly small team, and so there are some places, unfortunately, that we just cannot get to, which, that kind of breaks my heart because I believe that everybody deserves a coach. I think that we're kind of beyond that mentality where if there's somebody from central office on your campus that you're in trouble, that's not where we are now in 2023. So unfortunately, we're not able to go to all the campuses just yet. Well, I mean, technically we could, but we'd be spreading ourselves really thin. And so we are focused. We worked again with Angels folks to kind of tier campuses and go to the campuses that needed our support the most, or maybe they didn't, but, it was just the way we tiered them. So we are able to interface with those campuses more. And again, we'd like to be able to interface with all campuses all the time, everywhere, and have an army of people. But just because of, the parameters that we have, we aren't able to spend as much time, everywhere.
Thank you for that. And are you seeing impacts of the campus level instructional coaches where we funded those this year, and an impact of, I know you invested in training to make sure it was high quality, to make sure the coaches were actually coaching. So tell me a little bit more about what we've learned from that and what we might consider with the budget about expanding that, because I know campuses without coaches would love coaches. Campuses with coaches would probably love more coaches.
More coaches, right.
Yes.
So they have been invaluable because, as I said, we do have a small team, but they amplify our impact. So, thank you to Chief Hosick. She allows us to say, hey, can we, get in for a half day and do a training on the curriculum? Or can we talk about deconstructing TEKS or writing learning targets, or incorporating the listening, speaking, reading, writing strategies to show how that's embedded within the curriculum. So without them, then our impact would not be as large. So again, it has amplified our impact by being able to have access to them. And a lot of times they are the ones that attend the just-in-time training because it's easier for them to come to those trainings, and then therefore they take that back and impact a multitude of teachers. So absolutely, it has made a huge impact. And then when our specialists are out on campuses, they're partnered with the coaches. So, it's nice to have a friend, a teammate. So yes.
Okay. I love hearing a yes. That's awesome that it's moving the needle and making a difference. Thank you. And I know that's a testament to really thoughtful rollout and really thoughtful strategies around it. So thank you. Yay. I have a question about some of the campus level data, which it's looking at it, there are big differences in students who met the growth targets within individual campuses. If you pull out our African American students from families with economic disadvantage, our Hispanic students from families with economic disadvantage, sometimes they're big gaps, 20-point gaps between those two groups. Do you have a sense of what's happening within a campus with one group really? Do you think it's linguistic? Do you think it's something else? What do you think is going on with those gaps? Do you have a theory of that?
Can you clarify, are you saying between certain student groups on the campus?
Between certain student groups within individual campuses. There are really big gaps in some of those. And I was just looking at the columns for math, for example, African American students with families experiencing economic disadvantage versus Hispanic students with families experiencing economic disadvantage. And you'll see 53% to 37%, you'll see 55% to 44%, you know, kind of these sizable gaps, 43% to 56%, kind of what's going on within a campus where different groups of students are achieving at such different rates, even within our students with economic need and our students who have the biggest gaps. Do you have a sense of, and it's not balanced from campus to campus, one is much higher than the other, and they're not small gaps, they're big gaps in a lot of instances, with reading and with math.
One context to keep in mind here is that a lot of these campuses have a very small number of African American students, so 2 students can cause a big jump in percentages, where Hispanics, for example, if you're comparing it to them, it may take 20, 30 students to just move the needle 1 percentage point, because that population is a lot larger. So I think that's one of the reasons you might see bigger jumps between different groups in that manner. Now, given that context, I think we'll let Angel discuss.
And I would also like to add, Dylan, since we're here, I think it would be advantageous to have the numbers in here, so that way we could see that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. So understanding that it could be an artifact of the data, yeah, I think that's very helpful to see. So thank you for that. That explains a lot, I think. I have a question about those non-academic connectors and factors that you were talking about at Gus Garcia. Is work being done to support that and strategize for that and offer resources for that, either of knowledge, funding, whatever it takes at other campuses?
Yes, work has definitely been done for that. At our last principals meeting, we had Joshua Gian and team with Student Support Services. They came and presented to our principals. They also did it at Leadership Institute, and it was such a powerful breakout session that I asked for them to come to our secondary principals meeting. And we are tapping into every available and possible resource, partnership, after school extracurricular activity that is being allotted to us. Many principals were amazed and weren't quite aware of the full extent of to what all is being offered and provided. So we are looking, and we have a goal to have every child connected on every campus, because we know that makes the world of a difference. A lot of our secondary campuses are engaging in club hour, and so for our high school campuses, it takes place during lunch. You walk onto any high school campus. I was at LASA a couple of weeks ago, also at Eastside Early College High School. They have East Hour. During that lunch period, you see more students engaged in activities than you see eating, which I shouldn't be celebrating, but what I'm saying is they get excited when it's club day and they want to be a part of it. For some, Bowie as well, for some clubs happen every day. For others, it's a particular day of the week that it happens. All students will not be engaged in athletics. They're not going to all be engaged in UIL sports and activities, but there is an opportunity for them all to be engaged in something, whether it's playing chess in the courtyard at Eastside during lunch, whether it's connecting in the anime club that kids are really, really excited about, and other areas and avenues for them to be successful, because we find that when they're successful there, they're not on an attendance plan. When they're successful there, we're not having to go and do home visits. They are beating down our doors wanting to come into the school. And when we get them here, we can teach them math, we can teach them reading, even if they don't want to know. But we have to get them here first. And so the more we can connect them to these experiences, our parent support specialists have done an amazing job. We were just at Travis Early College High School today. Trustee Zapata was there as well for Lata Malata. And the parent support specialists took the opportunity to talk to the parents before we even went to the back to start making the tamales. So I'm just really blown away by the level of intentionality that principals and leadership teams are using to help engage the community and parents anytime they're on the campus, to use that as opportunities to talk to them, to get them in and to get them connected.
Thank you for that. That's very exciting. And a few of us were at the Network of Public Education Conference a few weeks ago, and they talked about Club Hour as a connector and using that lunch period for those connections among students and between students and staff, and also talked about something I know some of our secondary campuses do, which is to have a photo of every student on campus in a place where adults gather, and make sure that every single student has at least 2 connections to an adult on the campus. And I knew that some principals here do that, and to hear that as a really powerful thing on the campus that was presenting. And the lunch hour was another one they talked about, and all of that. And I will say as the parent of kids who had that opportunity, they could eat lunch and do their activities, and it was great. And it was really powerful for both of them. Just a source of connection, friendship, connection to teachers who became very important in their lives. And we'll say last night I was at Austin High at Maroon and White Night, the big open house, and all the student clubs had booths, and it was everything from the Young Voters Club to the Harry Styles Club and anything else you can imagine. So it was fantastic to see. It doesn't have to be serious. It just has to be something that connects. So I love it. Sometimes it's better if it's not serious. So I love that. I have one more question. You had mentioned the students, and I loved the photos you shared, getting to have a physical book to read from. Do we know what the data says about physical books versus screens? We've leaned so heavily into screens. Is that impacting our reading achievement? And also at the same time, would love to know if every middle school has the opportunity to read novels as part of their learning. Is that built into their curriculum? It's a good question.
So I have not looked into that data in some years. So to be fair, the research that I have would be old. So I'd want to make sure that I'm giving you the most accurate data. But I do, from the data from a few years ago when I started looking at it, it did show that, reading physical books, kids retain what they read better than they do when they're on an e-reader. So, but again, I haven't looked at that for a few years. So to be fair, I'd want to give a better answer and look into that again. And what was the second part of your question?
Thank you for that. I appreciate that because I think, K-app, where children are spending so much more time on screens, and I think the compounding factor of that,
and
if that's what things still show.
We have been really trying to leverage our libraries, right? Our librarians are a huge part. They're, they're the hearth of the campus. And so that's been one of the pushes that we've had when we're on campuses is how are we leveraging the librarian and the library. So that's where the book tasting came from, and it happened at other campuses. So we just want to ensure that, we are taking advantage of our librarians to the best of our ability. And
And my second question was about novels.
Yes.
And does the curriculum include the kind of expectation that students will be reading more than passages, that students will be reading entire novels in middle school?
So basically, yes. But we are moving away from the idea of a whole class novel because there is lots of research out there that says that most students, when they are forced to read a whole class novel, don't actually read the novel. Yeah. They'll go along with it and they'll pretend. So we are trying to get more teachers into doing book clubs where there's more choice for the kids, or even choosing your own book. So we're moving more to choice and book clubs and trying to move into that direction, just because we know the research on a whole class novel. Most of you probably know how you felt about a whole class novel. I'm 2 times an English major and know what I did with whole class novels. So, and that research is out there, and we know that it is best when the students have some choice in what they're reading.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I do recall that from school, and I recall my 2 favorite high school English teachers gave us lots of choice within genre, and it was very powerful. And I remember those books much more than I remember anything we all read
Right.
together. Yes, so thank you for all of that. I really appreciate the conversation and the work.
Thank you. Trustee Zapata?
Okay, I had some questions on other ways to help figure out how we can reach more students. So I'm curious about the health and wellness, because my second year as a trustee, I met with all my 5th graders at all my 12 schools. And there were some concerns, there were some things of how they felt. There was a little activity I did, and I said, there's some days that you come to school and you're in school, but you're not in school because there's a lot of things on your mind. And that was a lot for a lot of our students, that they said, yeah, I come to school and I'm not here, because there's too much things going on at home or in my family, whatever. So I'm curious, a lot of times it's not that the teacher isn't doing their best, it's sometimes the child is not at their best. So how is that part of this, the holistic approach to helping identify the student that, I need a mentor. When I asked at all my campuses about mentors, there was not one clear understanding of how you get a mentor, what that process is, because, there's a lot of people that want to be mentors. And so finding other ways to help our students to, that need that extra support. So.
Yeah, thank you for that question. I know in our last principals meeting, we met with Crystal Kohoff and our MTSS team, and we had a very powerful, impactful session on just reviewing the processes that we have as a district for our MTSS supports and our child study teams. And principals met by level. So we had high school principals in one area, and we had middle school principals at another site, and they were able to share in best practices on things that their child study teams do on a weekly basis in order to track students, to have conversations daily about students that are showing up as having excessive absences. Has anyone laid eyes on this particular student? We know that mental health has been highly elevated since the start of this school year for very serious reasons. And we wanted to ensure that we have systems and protocols in place, not just on paper, but they're actually being followed in practice, and that we actually see the evidence and the impact of that as we go week by week. And so looking at our campus attendance rates, looking at the absences, what we've noticed at our secondary level, especially the high school level, it's not necessarily the kids are not coming to school. We are looking at reports as an executive director team and as principal leadership teams, and we're noticing they're just not coming to a certain period. So when you print out the reports, you'll see it, and it's pretty evident. They are all at school, or they come to school at 8:30. They may always miss advisory period. They may always miss first period and fifth period, but those trends tell a story. And so when we see the trends and patterns, we have to dig deeper, and those conversations take place in the child study teams. A lot of times what we find is I don't like that class, or I don't like that teacher, or there's no connection or sense of belonging, or I don't see the importance or the relevance and why I need to be in this particular area. So that's all about making connections. It's all about kids having a trusted adult that they can identify on campus, and it's about them knowing that somebody's going to notice when I'm not here, and they're going to call, and they're going to knock on my door, and they're going to be asking questions. And so I say that work is going on in our secondary schools for child study teams. It's also us being more intentional about advisory periods. We had very critical conversations with principals over the summer, and we're having them now as we're building the master schedule for next school year. And it's not about just mass assigning and dumping students in advisory period, but we're using the data to inform those practices. Whether the data is academics that we're using to look at, hey, this person could really benefit from being in a math teacher's class for that advisory period, or whether the data is the SEL and CPA-9 supports and the advisory lessons that take place in those classes. For some campuses, like Aikens, the students move through advisory through a cohort. They're in academies, and they feel a sense of family and belonging because they stay with that same group and that same cohort. So it's a sense of culture that's been given with that, and they feel seen and heard and valued. So we have principals that share out these best practices every time we meet, and then we follow up and monitor for next steps in coaching and support to replicate those practices. Our goal is not to have anomalies in our secondary campuses. Our goal is for this to be the norm and the standard, and for it not to happen on one side of town and you have to get bused over here if you want to experience this, but for this to be right down the street in your neighborhood school.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have. Thank you.
Trustee Whitley Chu, you're good. Trustee Gonzalez.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that I really appreciate the questions that were asked by President Singh. That was, pretty much the line of questioning that I was going to go down. That's really my wondering is, what I agree with all the things that you said, like even what you were just talking about. The years where I was able to provide the best intervention was when I could use that fit time, but I had to be like super organized, because if I had the kid that came in from first and fifth and third, and those were 3 different preps, and they were in different places, I had to be ready to give whatever intervention was appropriate for wherever that kid was at for that prep. So my question, and it's the same as kind of President Singh's, was just what are the elements, what are those specific variables that have proven most effective in the environments that we're most concerned about, and then what can we do to just like throw bricks on the accelerator for those specific variables? But I don't have to re-ask it because I feel like you kind of touched on all those things in President Singh's question. But yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Kaufman.
Thank you again. I always appreciate hearing about the work that's going on our campuses and the attention on getting the results that our students deserve. So thank you for the presentation. I'm going to ask some similar questions that I've asked in the past, but I'd like to ask them for today's data. And I really would like to urge us to find the answer to this question. What districts are achieving the 80 to 100% of middle school students attesting at meets grade level for all student groups? Like, who are our heroes out there that we are trying to emulate so that we can learn from them as well? So do we know right now, like, who in Texas or beyond are achieving those results for all student groups that we aspire for our students?
I do not know the answer to that, but I can ask the NWEA people if they're allowed to share that data with us. I don't know legally if they can, but I will ask, and I will get that answer to you as soon as possible.
Okay. And I ask that in the spirit of high expectations for students and knowing that students are capable of so much more, but also pushing back on a system that is kind of designed to create and exacerbate inequalities, that is purported to lead towards closing the gaps, but actually the results for the last 30 years of accountability has been the opposite. And so I want us to continue to as a district, keep Austin weird and look outside of the box that we've been placed in so that we can actually meet the expectations of our accountability system, but not fall into the trap of this tiny incremental growth. Because we see over and over again, we work hard to do these little incremental things, trying to close the gap, and we get close, and then the standard changes, the test changes, and the gap reappears. So we're playing into their game. We're playing into a game that is not working for our students, and so I just really want us to look for, and if we cannot find those districts that are achieving those results, then we really have to do some questioning about how we're organizing our efforts and what our goals are so that we can achieve real results for students that our families see, not that are, showing up as gaps on reports. So I just encourage us to continue thinking about, like, are there districts achieving those results that we are aspiring to? And if not, how do we redefine success for our students so we can truly have all students reading and being successful in life after school? I also would like to ask, when we're looking at this middle school data, like the kind of accepted school of thought is that students really need to be reading on grade level by third grade in order to be on the trajectory towards success. Again, I'm happy to challenge that orthodoxy because I do believe that at any age we can find ways for students to find success in life. We never give up on a situation. However, we know that when a student is not reading on grade level by third grade, that they experience more challenges in middle school. So when we're looking at this middle school data, I'm curious, are we looking at, and do we know, like, what are the effective strategies for addressing the needs of students who are in that situation? And are we watching for those and elevating those strategies?
So I have mentioned this to y'all in the past, but we are in a pilot with REL Southwest, and I believe that they have figured out middle school reading intervention, and it does focus a lot on the things that you brought up last week, what happens when middle school kids don't have fluency, when they don't have phonemic awareness. So they have created a toolkit that we could use in reading acceleration classes as well, and also in small groups to catch the students up. So they're on the verge of it being published and put on the What Works Clearinghouse, and we are helping them to refine those strategies. So we've got some of the teachers right now that are participating in that pilot and giving feedback on those strategies. So that'll be something that we can implement again next year. I know, again, it's another next year answer, unfortunately, but we're very close. And what makes me excited about this is if you go to What Works Clearinghouse, which you know, it's a website that I rely on a lot because they, you know, all the research studies have to be very stringent in order for them to give it a sign of the seal of, yes, this actually does work with older students. Because we do know how to intervene with elementary students, but when students get a little bit older and it comes to reading, then it gets to be a little bit hit or miss. And I think that this is going to be one of the only studies that has figured out how to intervene with we like to say striving readers in middle and high school. So again, we are participating in this pilot, and as soon as we get through the pilot and they have given us permission to go forth and spread it around the district. Partially the reason we cannot right now is that it's a pilot and they're also gathering data, so they have control groups. So, you know, in order to stay within their research boundaries, there are some things that we are not allowed to do, but we are chomping at the bit to have access to it and roll it out district-wide with our middle school students.
Thank you. And Mr. Segura, I am actually on the governing board for the REL Southwest, and we'll be meeting in December 5th and 6th. And that'll be one of the topics. So if I could get some information prior to that meeting that would help inform the district's participation in that, so I can be more of an active participant in that meeting, I would appreciate that.
Happy to do it.
Okay, and I love the question, thank you. I love the questions around, you know, looking at data, the bright spots in our data and asking, like, what is it that's happening in those campuses making that happen? But I will say that I'm more interested in, like, in the longer term data about the changes that are being implemented that are supporting the improvement. And so rather than, you know, here's a campus that is doing well, what are they doing? I'd really more interested in the question of, we have learned that these are effective practices in use by campuses that are achieving success, and that we added these practices to our improvement model, and here is the data on the spread of those practices, right? Because I think we continue asking you questions. I'll just read this. We continue asking you questions that open the door to an explanation about what our district leadership team knows about effective instruction and what needs to be done. But I really hope that we can shift our approach to outcome monitoring as we're looking at how we practice as a board, so that our questions invite you to share evidence on the changes in practice that will result in improvement. Because you speak extremely knowledgeably about what needs to be done, but I'm really much more curious, instead of the explanation, in saying, here's 3 practices that we're trying to implement. They're happening in 28% of our campuses. That 28% represents 42% of our campuses because we don't have the capacity to monitor in all of them. And we're aiming towards, you know, 60% by December and 80% by March. And we'll report back to you on how that's going. So I really hope we can continue to push the thing towards, rather than the philosophical discussions, and more towards the concrete evidence that we see these things happening. And that's on us to make sure that we're asking the questions in a way, and we're helping structure those monitoring reports so that they get at the data, implementation data, not just the student data. So, for example, like when Dr. Wilson said that there are systems and procedures in place that are being followed, right, on monitoring for attendance and different things. I love to hear that, but I'm curious then, what do we see about, you know, are those systems being followed? Where are they being followed? How often are they being followed? And are we moving towards them getting followed? So.
And I would be happy to report about that. We monitor those as an executive director team, and so we have meetings every Friday. We look at campus attendance plans, and we don't just look at the plan on paper. We talk about what that implementation looks like in practice. Mm-hmm. And of course, the true evidence are the ADA percentages increasing, or are they not? So we are looking at the evidence of impact and not just what we see on paper.
Awesome, thank you. And I do want to go back a little bit to some of the instructional the questions we had. I want to re-ask Trustee Boswell's question because are we seeing patterns in the data regarding the teachers who are implementing the curriculum? And I understood from the response that we are checking for that in certain campuses, but not all. But I'm curious, of that 74% of whatever group that it is being seen, are we seeing trends or patterns into, like, who is implementing the curriculum or who isn't? Do we know anything about that?
Yes, and again, you know, the advantage of now being secondary instead of K-12 is that it's easier to focus on our middle schools, right, that need attention. And so, though, again, we have visited a lot of the middle schools, almost all of them. But what I can tell you is that what the specialists are seeing when the teachers are following the curriculum is tremendous results, that the teachers are happier. We've gone into the classrooms, the kids are joyous, and the specialists are super stoked about it too, because they take pictures and they're like, look at the kids in the hall. They're sharing their writing. They hadn't written anything more than a few sentences, and now they're writing essays. So all of that is, it's captured somewhat in that data tool that I have, but a lot of it is just in pictures and sharing what they're experiencing on the campuses and the joy that.
Can I interrupt and just ask, so do we know, are the new teachers more likely to be using it versus the veteran teachers? Are the teachers who were more successful in their data last year with their students experiencing, or the ones who are less successful with the data? Are they, are there ways, are the schools that are Title I, which I guess might be the majority of the students that you're checking for this, but are there, demographic differences in the schools? Is it dependent on the school leadership? Are there ways of seeing that data and breaking it down for who? I guess I understood that to be more the intent of Trustee Boswell's question.
So we could probably start tracking that data. That, again, that would be a good suggestion for our data tracking tool, to add another layer onto it. But from what my ACSs tell me, and it is new teachers. It is veteran teachers. Sometimes the veteran teachers are some of the more reluctant to adopt new things. So, and a lot of times the PLCs are grouped together where there are veteran teachers and there are new teachers mixed together. So I would say that it is more of a movement of the entire campus. Okay. But again, that's observational data. Yeah. And I know what you're asking for is more kind of hard data.
And I wouldn't ask for that. I wouldn't ask for that to be something to prepare for the benefit of the board. I'm just really thinking, again, in an improvement model, thinking about, if this is what our theory of action is of how we want to improve, and we see that this is happening here, but it's not happening here, is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? And if it's a bad thing, then how do we make sure that what's happening here is also happening here? 100%. And is it a result of the collaborative process that makes so that they all want to implement the same thing? Is it a result about the kind of novice nature of themselves, that they need that help and they're looking for it? Is it based on their expectations, the expectations that this principal sets? That would be where I would see that data being valuable, not to come back and report because I asked you that question here or that Trustee Boswell asked you that, but because that's actually something that you believe is going to be helpful with moving the implementation forward. So please don't create that on my behalf, but on.
No, it's a great suggestion.
It's just a question.
And again, what you all point to is the systems, right? So it's not just going to be one thing or two things. It's how a whole system, a campus, a school district is moving. And there are many parts in play. And to be able to understand what are the parts at play that are helping these campuses move forward as a collective group.
Thank you. And so my last line of questioning is just around the instructional playbook or the kind of monitoring piece. Help me understand, the instructional playbook exists, that campuses are customizing that to prioritize certain things that they feel are most effective or will be most effective as a change process on their campus, improvement process. And also, when the ICs or your team are visiting campuses, they are looking for practices from the instructional playbook? What is it that they're, when you, the 74% data about the implementation of the curriculum, is that looking at those instructional practices from the playbook? Or is that looking at, what is it you're monitoring for in the classroom? And that goes for both offices?
So I'll let Dr. Wilson speak to the playbook, but what we are monitoring for is the actual use of the curriculum documents. In particular, we're looking for the teachers to be working within the units, and then the next layer of it is the instructional resource guide. Because we, again, We have 3 layers to the curriculum. The first part would be the year at a glance, which is an overview. The unit is kind of where the magic happens. And then the resources have model lessons and other resources for the teachers to use. So where we want to see the teachers is working within the units. So that's what we're looking for as a system to ensure that there's a couple of things, to be a district of schools, right? One of the things is that we have to have a common curriculum that all the campuses are following, because then we do not know, if the campuses do not follow the curriculum, then we do not know what works and what doesn't work. It's willy-nilly. So that's why it's really important for us to try and get that number to 100%.
And by teaching the curriculum, is that meaning like the objectives and the goals and the
Right,
learning objectives are the same, or does that extend to include the instructional practices are happening? Like, what is it when you say following the curriculum?
So following the curriculum would be that they are into the unit looking at the TEKS. They are looking at the overarching questions. They're looking at enduring understandings. They're looking at the vocabulary. They're looking at the vertical alignment. They are deconstructing TEKS. They're sequencing TEKS into learning progressions. They're looking at the performance assessment. They're using the performance assessment that's built within the unit.
Okay.
So all of the different components that are within the actual units.
Okay. So, and that's just where it gets hard for me to visualize the idea of monitoring for this, because that's a lot to answer in one question of, are they following the curriculum, right? And so I'm really wondering, both around this and instructional practice, when we think about the third future model and kind of what they're looking at, like, I have some confidence when they say that our teachers are asking questions every 3 minutes, that their teachers are asking questions every 3 minutes, because that's something that's very narrow, that they've identified as something that's going to move their students forward, ensure that the belief that student talk is important is actually implemented in practice, because they have a process for that happening. Now, I'm not saying that that's going to be the appropriate strategy for every campus, but I have some confidence when I hear that is happening, it's being coached, it's being, it's happening, because it's very narrow. And so when I hear like the broad things, we have an instructional playbook, or we have a curriculum that are following, even the multilingual education thing for the checklist or the tool for gathering data, like, it's broad. And so it really trying to move down to like, is it an effective practice for us as a district to identify a handful of high priority, high leverage strategies that we expect to see in every classroom, and to really invest the time to ensure that those things are happening, and that over the course of a year, like we're seeing, we went from 18% of classrooms doing this to 22% to 48%, and by May, we ended the year with 94% of our classrooms doing these practices. And it's like a piece of it, and that we now know that we have the capacity to do that. And next year, or next month, we're going to focus on this, and that data gets reported back to the board so that we can see that tremendous growth that's happening. So that's just a question, is that something that might help us move the needle?
Right, and that is we do actually monitor for more kind of minute things that I did not include in the presentation. And one of them would be something very similar to Third Future, which would be the formative checks. So within the curriculum, there is a learning target, success criteria, and then there are formative assessments. And within those formative assessments, which happens in a lesson, there are 2, 3, 4 formative checks. And so that we also are monitoring that. So I can bring you data about that particular piece, because that is the piece where I know that we're going to get the most movement from.
Okay.
So yes, we are monitoring it. Yes, we know exactly the piece of the curriculum that, based on research, will move the needle. And we are monitoring that. And next time we present to you, I can bring you back some data on that particular piece of the curriculum that I think is most pivotal.
Okay. I mean, as you know, I'm a recovering teacher who's
Yes.
working to become a board member who's operating in the governance that's going to be most effective for moving our system and empowering you to do the work and empowering teachers to do the work. So I want to just be careful. You know, I've learned to be careful with what I ask for because it can distract and detract from what we're really trying to do. So I just want to enter this into the conversation around how we as a board can set our targets and the reporting processes so that we're getting at the things that are going to be most beneficial for us to kind of monitor. And I do want to, again, continue to open up that black box of what happens in between, because I do think that effective monitoring from the governance standpoint does include what's happening, not just the actual student results that we want to know. Like, this is our theory of action. These are the things that we're doing to get there. And these are the student results. And then we're looking in the black box to see these things are happening and they're changing. But like, don't do a new report for us right now, but let's just continue to have that conversation as like, what is it that's going to help us most do our part in monitoring? So thank you for all your time.
Trustee Hunter.
Taking everything in me, not to scream hallelujah.
Do it.
I'm so close, you know me. I turn into black church in here, you know. Yes, to everything Trustee Kaufman just said. I feel like he was reading my notes, honestly. So a lot of it, y'all getting off easy. You don't have to hear from me. I do want to go back to a couple of things you said and just kind of make sure you heard what you said. Dylan said, you know, there's only 2 black kids. That's probably true in a lot of schools. So to my mind, those should be the most successful kids. You got 3, you got 5, you got 10. I think when we were at Webb, we had like 12, right? If you only have 12, then there's no reason for there to be a gap. Because you can assign a kid to each one of those teachers, and somebody can be calling a mama or something and saying, here's where your kid is, here's what we're going to do. So, yes, the numbers are small. That's what I'm saying, right? I heard, where did we say? What was the other one? When we're talking about, when my daughter went to the high school she went to, it's 1,800 kids, and they said they had 1 lunch. I was like, that's that's never gonna work. That's ridiculous. It works so well. They knew what they were talking about. I didn't know what I was talking about. My kid did Scotty's seminar, and she does fit. And if we know that works, then why is it still an option? Why is it not being centralized and it's a non-negotiable? For me, that's a get right or get left kind of thing. That's what he's talking about. If there are things that we know we want to come in here and talk about those bright spots, let's analyze it. Let's analyze the bright spots. And if that's working, then that's something that the administration can figure out and work and whatever, and we can figure out from there, like, what's a monitoring piece around the building of how that's moving for me. So I'm just really like, let's do that. The last thing that I want to talk about, because like he really did cover like all my stuff. The last thing that I want to talk about is when we talk about those students in those schools where African Americans do well. What is the thinking of the district when you're like, that school does really well with African Americans? What happens after that? Like, what's the move? What's move to? When you look at that data and you say, wow, school X really has, if it's 12, 10, 300 African Americans and they're doing well, what do we do after that? What's the next step?
We find out why they're doing well, and then we make efforts to replicate those practices in other places. At first, it starts with buy-in. No, it's not a magic wand where we are mandating that every campus be a one-size-fits-all model, but it starts with the buy-in in our principals meeting. So we have chosen to move by levels intentionally because what we have realized is that middle school principals want to hear from middle school principals, and high school principals only respect high school principals. And so we've gone to 2 different sites so that way we can engage in very high-impact conversations around spotlighting. So every principals meeting, we're spotlighting 2 to 3 principals based on an instructional strategy, a system, something that we've noticed is working, and it's working for maybe a certain student group or population, or it's working as a whole collectively. And then once that happens, those conversations are cascaded down to the executive directors, and for that individualized coaching and support, that's where the work happens in moving the principals' thinking and helping them to implement those systems. A lot of times it's not pushback, as so to speak, as I don't want to do it, but wrapping my mind around how can I actually put this into practice. 9 times out of 10, it's the master schedule. The master schedule, the master schedule. The two most important things are the master schedule and the budget, and both of those have to be driven by student needs and having very data-driven, informed conversations. And what we've noticed is that it's easier to make decisions based on the convenience of adults than what's in the best interest of students. So that's where the conversations and the coaching and the feedback comes with the executive director and the principals, with shifting that mindset and thinking to, yeah, this may be a little disruptive when we started off, but this is what's in the best interest of students, to have data-driven advisory periods. So there are a lot of things that can happen because the systems are already in place in every school. And that's what we try to look at first. Advisory periods, that's already said. That's a done deal in every school. How are we utilizing the advisory period? That's what looks differently school by school. So we're having conversations now as we're planning for next year on what data pieces are we using to drive this advisory period, and then what are the needs that are screaming at us from the campus on how this period should be used.
So I will say that my expectation of the superintendent, as interim superintendent, as we look at things like that, is that is being leveraged. Because I've been to many places where people are on their phones. And that's a really great opportunity. And by the way, I'm going to be assigning this meeting to my class to watch it, because pretty much everything I talked about today, we've talked about in this meeting. But one of the things we talked about is I spoke with them about leveraging their time. And I was like, morning, you're going to miss the bus kids. After school, you're going to miss the athletic kids. It is your duty-free lunch. But if you want to do what you said you want to do, then that's when your tutoring is going to be. That's when your opportunity for work is going to be. It's your choice how you use your time. But if you listen to an old head, that's where you're going to make your biggest impact. And so that's the conversation that we had today in my class. And so my expectation is that is 100% on every single campus that has an advisory, that's being leveraged. We cannot have kids sitting idle. And I don't mean go get on iReady. Or we don't even use iReady. I'm thinking of another school. Go get on, we have? MAP. Oh, no, IXL, that's what it is, IXL. Go get on IXL. And so, because that's gonna affect our outcomes. And then we have a tool that's actually a useful tool that kids hate. Because it's almost, they feel like it's a punishment. The last thing I wanna say, and I'm gonna be real honest, because I can't be no other way, honestly. It's too much to pick from. Teachers got too much to pick from. We got to say this is what you're going to do when it comes to those curriculums and those lessons, right? They are being overwhelmed. First of all, I don't know if you saw the new study. I want you to go out and see it in Houston Landing, that the numbers, there are some districts in the Houston area got 50% of their teachers are uncertified. The others have come through an EPP so fast, the ink is not even dry. They're not ready, they're not prepared, and we're thinking of them as these people who can make really wise choices and decisions, and some of them really can, because they sprung from the head of Zeus, a full-blown teacher. But some of them are being overwhelmed, and they're almost paralyzed and are doing nothing. I have the very great ability to have teacher residents, and they get to come and share, like, this is what I'm dealing with, can you help me? We have teachers that are like, who do I talk to? Where do I find them? Who do I go to? So as you guys are working with them and as we bring these people in, I'm just telling you from the outside, they're being overwhelmed with all of the wonderful choices and programs and computer programs and curriculums and books and things. They really just need somebody to say, do this right now. I was given all my curriculum for the class I'm teaching. They gave me all the slides and everything. And they said, this is what you're supposed to teach. This is what TA has said we gotta do. These are the papers that gotta be signed off. I was never so grateful. And I'm a master teacher, but I'd never taught this class before. And that helped me so much. Not just my slides, because those slides are lame. And I do some other stuff. But I'm always thinking, next year I'm gonna do this, next time I'm gonna do this, next time I'm gonna do this. Because that's what I'm doing. But it was such a breath of fresh air to have somebody hand me and say, this is what you need to teach. And I make it fanciful, and I add videos, and I do great things. But I want to honestly tell you that I feel like they're being overwhelmed. And you got such great stuff. Y'all are telling me the good programs. And I really want to create the retention, because that's part of what we look at. Like, how are our teachers staying? And if they're not staying because they're being overwhelmed, then I want to know, leverage us so that we can do more of that for y'all.
We will. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, trustees. Anyone else have, trustee Lugo, go ahead.
So thank y'all. And can I just say, like, I really appreciate the information and the data and the dialogue and the thoughtfulness around the presentations. I don't know, maybe today I'm just like in a reflective mood, but this is so different from what we used to get even just like a year or 2, 3 years ago. So just wanted to share my appreciation for that. Okay, so a couple of questions, and I do want to echo, yeah, decision fatigue is a real thing. I absolutely think there's like a balance between, you know, here are the guideposts, make it your own, right? So it's like a balance of narrowing the decisions and then empowering to, you know, I think some of the schools are doing that, right? Like taking the playbook and making it their own. So just wanted to echo that. Also I promise I'll get to questions. Also wanted to echo the thing about advisory. So I have a middle schooler, and I had reached out to their advisory period person and explained, you know, hey, so-and-so, you know, my child, you know, so-and-so is dealing with this, and that, you know, I want to make sure that he's using his time in advisory, Never got an email back or a call. And so it's just kind of interesting, campus to campus, right? The reason I mentioned that is because a couple of nights ago, well, what day is it? Yeah, I think it was a couple of nights ago. I got a call from one of my middle schoolers' teachers. And I had already gotten emails from other teachers, so I was like, oh my God, what is it now, right? Like, what is it now? So I picked up the phone, or, y'all know what I mean. I'm old school. I picked up the phone. And first of all, a phone call versus an email is so powerful. And I know teachers and staff are strapped for time. I, can't even imagine. But it made such a huge difference. Like, I almost cried on the phone, and I almost want to cry now because, one, I knew that it was eating into that person's time. Sorry. One of the things that teacher said was that they had told the class, because this person's coming into the class, the other teacher had left, that the teacher had told the class, I know y'all can do better than this, and I expect y'all to do better than this, and here's what I'm going to do to help make sure you do better. I know. Y'all don't, for any mamas and middle schoolers, y'all don't know unless you do. Parents, no, that's a good shout out. That is a good shout. Yes, 100%. Parents and middle schoolers. And so that made a huge difference. But then I also, we had a dialogue, right? And then I had a conversation with my middle schooler, and I said, so-and-so called, boy, my middle schooler was ready to defend. You know me. So I speak first. I'm sorry. So I was talking to him about it. And I said, well, just hold on, right? Let's talk about the situation. And I think having it both come from the teacher to the students and the parents to the students, I feel like there's something powerful about that. Obviously, I don't have the, education background, but just as a parent, that was huge. So I make those comments because I think about what y'all were saying earlier, right? We wish we had an army, we wish we could reach more campuses. How do you balance quantity and retain that quality, right? And so one of the things that I'm hopeful of and eager to see is that as we start to get into more conversations around budget, that each of the departments, each of y'all feel empowered to say, here's what we need, and here's how we know we need it, right? Right? I'm sorry. So yeah, here's what we need. Here's how we know we need it. And just a couple of things on, like, I always tell myself and my kids, you may be told no, but if you don't ask, that's an automatic no, right? Like, you got to ask. May not get it all, but you asked, and you might get more than you thought you were going to get. So just a couple of comments on that, but kudos to that teacher. I don't know if I'm allowed to shout out his name. I don't even remember his name. I'm going to be honest, because I was on the verge of crying. Okay, get with me, and I will tell. I know what grade and school and all that. The other thing I wanted to mention was around student participation. So I think y'all can kind of see the thread there. But yeah, reaching out to the adult in the household, right, can hopefully be a good positive thing. It depends on the family. If they would have reached out to my dad, ooh, no. So the other kind of question I had was, so y'all mentioned the pre-teaching and kind of backfilling when it comes to, was that around, math, thank you. And so it got me thinking about, like, how common is that just in general as a practice? Because one of the things that I've learned along the way when it comes to presentations or sales pitches or any of that, it's tell them what you're going to say it, and then tell them what you just told them, right? And so, like, if that works for adults, I mean, it sounds like there's also a connection there for students. So just kind of curious, like, again, we kind of see where we're at now, but what are y'all hoping to, how are y'all hoping to leverage that concept? And is it common in other subjects? That's what I'm curious about.
So speaking to
the pre-teaching and the
math.
backfilling, yeah.
So it is a pretty common approach to striving mathematicians. So, and again, I have done this successfully elsewhere in several other places. So the idea came from collaborating with other folks around the state that were in the same situation, because, a lot of people are willing to share information of things that work, and so just meeting with colleagues to figure out how, because again, it's kind of like we were focused on reading for the longest time, reading, and then we looked at the math scores and said, oh, wait, we've got a math problem. Well, we have both, but so there is a lot of research around reading intervention, but there's less about math intervention. So this came from like a collaborative around people all across the state who had figured out how to create a curriculum that worked. So that's where that idea came from.
Just super interested in future updates, like how that's working, how to apply, because it makes intuitive sense. So, but I don't know what it looks like in practice, right? And if it's sustainable or not. But yeah, and then it also makes me think about inclusion and special education and multilingual, right? Like how helpful that can be
100%.
to, apply
a lot
that.
of students.
So thank y'all.
Thank you. Okay, last call, anyone? Okay, great.
One.
Oh, yes.
Yes, want to thank Trustee Kaufman for reading my mind. Thank you. And really digging deeper into some of what I was trying to get to. So thank you for that. And just want to put a comment out. Last year at the Council of the Great City Schools meeting, I went to a panel with a district that was doing really thoughtful work with their monitoring reports in conjunction with the council. And one thing that they had was in all their strategies, not every strategy, but when there was data, they shared, we're using this strategy and this study backs it up. We're using this strategy and this thing we're learning from our campuses backs it up. And I think that would really help us as a board understand your thinking. We know you're not pulling this out of nowhere. We know that you have that information, and sharing that when it's appropriate and fits with us and our campus. I would like to explore that as we rethink our monitoring reports. Would really love your thoughts about that as we get into that work. And something that I was really, it was very memorable, and I took notes and kind of noted it and have mentioned it a few times since. And I think as we're entering into that, would love for that to be something we consider.
Thank you. Vice President Foster?
Absolutely not.
Okay. All right, I know you just came back from an important event at UT, so welcome back. All right, so we will move on then with the agenda, to the consent agenda, actually. So, trustees, I would like to ask that we pull item 9.5, superintendent posting and next steps, to allow us to discuss in executive session prior to voting. Trustees, are there any consent items anyone would like to pull for a separate vote?
I'd also like to pull 9.4 for the same reason.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, trustees, any other items to pull? Okay. All right, so Secretary Boswell, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Yes, I move to approve consent agenda items 8.1, 9.1 through 9.3, 10.1 through 10.10, 11.1, 12.1 through 12.5, and 13.1 and 13.2.
Okay. Great. All right. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. All right, trustees, is there any discussion on any of these consent items? Nope. Okay. Well, having a motion by Secretary Boswell and a second by Trustee Zapata to approve consent items 8.1, 9.1 through 9.3, 10.1 through 10.10, 11.1, 12.1 through 12.5, 13.1, and 13.2. Is there, all those in favor, please raise your right hand. All right, the motion passes unanimously. Thank you. So, sorry. So we will now recess the open meeting to discuss our pulled items, 9.4 and 9.5, and move to executive session pursuant to Texas Government Code, sections 551.074, 551.072, 551.073, 551.087, 551.076, 551.0821, and 551.071. When we are finished with the executive session, we will return to continue to vote on the items pulled from the agenda. So, all right, so thank you.
Should I make these announcements now or wait till you get back?
Yeah, please go ahead and make those now.
All right, thank you. Just wanted to make sure that we provided a warm felt congratulations to the new members to the AISD family. First off, Ms. Dawn Spinoza, our new ombudsperson. Huge. She's not here. But it marks a moment, right?
It's a moment.
It's a moment. It's a big deal.
That's awesome.
Appreciate the board working with the administration to get the budgeting process, get this in place, and working with the team and specifically Dr. Holly to get this into place. We also have Ms. LaTanya Emerson, Executive Director of School Leadership Campus Support for Secondary. Really excited to welcome her. And then lastly, Ms. Christina Nguyen, Executive Director of Communications and Community Engagement, and she'll be coming back home. So great to have her back, and excited to see the team working forward and working through the next year. So thank you. Yeah, absolutely. All right, thank you, President
That's
Singh.
awesome, and I hate to say this, but now I have to repeat, I think, all the executive, because I had accidentally, I know, I'm sorry, y'all. Okay, so we will now recess the open meeting once again at 8:37 p.m. and move to executive session pursuant, do I need to read all the codes again? Okay, pursuant to Texas Government Code Sections 551.074 and 551.071. And when we are finished with the exec session, we will return to continue to vote on the items pulled from the agenda. Thank you very much. Welcome back. So we will now reconvene in the open meeting at 9:58 p.m. As you will recall, there were two items we had pulled from the agenda to discuss in executive session. So we will start with, and those were 9.4 and 9.5. We'll start with 9.4. Trustee Hunter, do we have a motion for 9.4?
We do. I move to approve a superintendent profile revised to reflect community feedback and amendments as discussed in executive session, which include a prioritization of special education with specific reference to inclusive practices, a focus placed on multilingual education, more emphasis on staff morale, and an equity statement around gender identity and sexual orientation.
Thank you. Trustees, are there any questions or, do we have a second? I'm sorry. Second. All right. So, trustees, are there any questions or comments? I just want to thank the community for the input on revisiting this superintendent profile. Really, we listened, we leaned in, and we incorporated some of the themes that we heard that emerged. So, all right. So, having a motion by Trustee Hunter and a second by Trustee Zapata to approve item 9.4. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Great. The motion passes unanimously. All right, now the other item was agenda item 9.5, which would authorize the administration to post the permanent superintendent position. So I'm going to give you a little bit of background. So Matias Segura's interim superintendent contract ends on June 30th, 2024. And the board has several options to name a permanent superintendent. One option is to conduct a full national search, which takes several months. Another option is to post the permanent superintendent position now if it seems a full national search with a search firm is not necessary. So when school boards do this, it is often because a strong candidate has been identified already. So tonight's vote on agenda 9.5 would determine if the board authorizes the administration to post a permanent superintendent position tomorrow on November 17th. There are really two large pieces of information that seem to have emerged as factors in this decision. One was the performance of our current interim superintendent, and two is community feedback. In August, the board conducted a formal evaluation of Mr. Segura, aligned with our priorities and goals. In addition, the board did a round of community outreach in the spring, which focused on the superintendent profile development, and we did another round of community outreach this fall, which was anchored on student outcomes, on the appropriateness of the superintendent profile, and two key questions. One, what are the must-have characteristics for a permanent superintendent? And two, what are the deal breakers? So in all, we received input from individuals all over Austin. There was an overwhelming message of wanting stability, a focus on strengthening systems to improve student outcomes, and wanting someone with a demonstrated commitment to Austin ISD. Many people specifically asked for a current interim superintendent to be named as the permanent superintendent. To be clear, when we extended Matias Segura's contract in March, there was no provision barring him from applying for the permanent position. So, although we have a strong internal candidate, we are committed to considering every application that is received. So with all that in mind, do I have a motion on agenda item 9.5, which was pulled from consent for a separate vote?
Yes, I move to authorize that the administration post the superintendent position beginning tomorrow, November 17th through 5 p.m. on Thursday, December 7th.
Thank you.
And Dr. Reach may have a concern here.
No concern? No.
No concern.
Okay. And do we have a second? Second. Thank you. So we have a motion from Secretary Boswell and a second from Trustee Zapata on agenda item 9.5. Is there any discussion? Okay. So, sorry. So we have this motion again from Secretary Boswell and a second from Trustee Zapata. So all those in favor, please raise your hand. The motion passes unanimously. All right, well, thank you so much. And I do want to say that Because this motion passed, we will authorize the administration to post the superintendent position beginning Friday, November 17th and closing at 5 p.m. on December 7th. We will consider the applications that we receive in executive session on December 7th. Before we move back into executive session, I would like to really deeply thank our community, our staff, our families, students, for the time that they have taken to share their input with the board. And I also want to thank GR Recruiting for helping us in the initial stages of this work. So thank you all very much. And at this time, we will now recess the open meeting at 10:04 p.m. and move into executive session pursuant to Texas Government Code Sections 551.074, 551.072, 551.073, 551.087, 551.076, 551.0821, and 551.071. When we are finished with the executive session, we will briefly return to open session to formally adjourn the meeting. So the adjournment will be recorded and be included in all replays of tonight's meeting. So thank you for joining us and have a good evening. So we will now reconvene the open meeting at 11:52 p.m. Secretary Boswell, do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. All right, having a motion by Secretary Boswell and a second by Trustee Zapata to adjourn. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. The motion passes unanimously. The meeting is adjourned at 11:53 p.m. Thank you.